Hello, hello. Okay,
Hello.
just double checking. I can't be too careful on this. All right.
No, double check because I know
Yes.
like when I stream, it's just so many, checklists you have to make and make sure everything's okay, and it's a lot.
Well, and there was one time I wasn't checking very much, and then there was a chunk of my audio that was missing. How long was it? Like 40 minutes of audio or something, Jesse?
Yeah, it was like the
Huh.
last third of the podcast. But
No way.
luckily, in case I have situations like that, which is what I was doing whenever I was checking my recording, I recorded my audio and then the backup audio of the guests as like a
Mm.
Oh,
backup. But I asked the guests to record their own audio because sometimes it can sound sort of muffled coming through Skype.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
So
So that whole section of that podcast, it sounds like I swallowed the microphone. It sounds so bad.
yeah.
Oh.
All right. So we're ready, guys.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay. What's up, everybody? I am Jesse, or Game Over Jesse, as some of you all may know me, and I can't.
It's okay.
I
Do it
keep
again.
see. I was thrown off last time because I went to introduce you, Daniel, and you weren't there because we had Axel
Oh.
and Matt. So
You should have introduced me anyway.
yeah, but because like I started doing it because I have the same thing, the same introduction. Yeah. Anyways, all right.
Yeah. It's okay.
What's up, everybody? Jesse here, or Game Over Jesse, as some of y'all may know me. And today we have a very special guest here with us to join us on the Highlands Gamescast for January 21st. Chris, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself for those who may not know who you are?
Hello. I am GandaKris. I go by Chris though, or Christine, and I make custom amiibo. Yeah.
Awesome. You also have your own YouTube channel. Do you have a Twitch as well?
I have a YouTube. I have a Twitch. I use YouTube a lot more just because I do like a lot of crafting tutorials and DIYs. So and some other things, but so YouTube mostly.
All right. And joining us, as always, is our faithful co host, Daniel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi everybody, I'm back. Actually I was only on one time, but yeah. Or was it two now? Uh-oh.
It's two now. So.
It's two now. Uh-oh, Jesse, you have to be absent for the next one to
Yes.
make up for it.
People in the chat are saying, "Yay, Gibbs is back," or Daniel's
Gibbs.
back.
Yes. No. I'm not Gibbs either. Yeah, I co-host this DEG thing. It's awesome. And also currently have the most ghetto setup in my closet with the laptop on a stool, and I have nowhere to put the microphone, so it's actually sitting on my keyboard. So
Nice.
yeah.
That's how you do it. It sounds like a good setup.
I've mentioned this story before, but that was whenever I first started my YouTube channel. I didn't have a room that didn't have a lot of echoing. Plus, a lot of the other rooms were really loud. So I guess who I would call the most famous guest I ever had on the podcast was Greg Miller from Kinda Funny XIGN.
Oh,
So I had my interview with him where I was in my closet, but he didn't mind. He was like talking about how he's had to do similar stuff before, like doing a voiceover or something. There's no quiet room, so you just go to where like there's clothes everywhere to dampen out the sound. So
Yeah.
can I just say how much of an amazing human being he is?
oh,
Greg
I
Miller
didn't
is
know
just
you were a fan.
Yeah, he's such a sweetheart. He actually did a like amiibo what was it? Like thing at like PAX, and it was really cool, like a whole panel with other like amiibo collectors and stuff like that, and he was talking about it too, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he's really cool.
there was a few people that I get in some of the comments that are like, "Oh, your name is such a ripoff of Greg Miller," and I'm like, to be fair, I've had him on my YouTube channel a few times, and he approves. Like he said that he thinks it's awesome that he was able to inspire someone enough to like use their name or whatever as a tribute to them, because he says that's what like some of the inspiration from him came from other people that wanted to just take whatever they're passionate about and start their own thing. So he thinks it's awesome that he's able to inspire people that way because it makes it full circle. So for those who are watching that don't know, that's I guess the story of the name of my channel.
The
But
origin story.
yes,
I
the
know.
The
There's gonna be
origin
a gritty
story.
Cool
reboot film
though.
soon.
So, on today's podcasts, we will get to the questions as always for the mailbag later in the video. The questions will come from YouTube and Patreon. If you have some questions that you desire to be answered by myself, Daniel, or guests, you can become a Patreon subscriber to make your questions become a priority. So sometimes we get too many to cover them all. So if you want to make sure that your question does get answered, head over to patreon.com/GameOverJSE. Some of the news topics that we have is talking about the recent Nintendo Labo. I guess that's how you pronounce
I
it.
think
Have
it's
you
Labo.
Labo?
Yeah,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
laboratory, but rhymes with Nintendo.
Yes. We have a new interview where Nintendo furthers their thoughts on VR and 4K gaming, and we will end it with PlayStation releasing their own, not amiibo is what I'm calling them, because they're basically just amiibo without the functionality of the game. And of course, as always, we have shout outs from our current Patreons. So thank you, George Martinez, Megan Nill, Casey Willis, Rusty Caulfield, Link, Use the Triforce, Tight-Lipped Gaming, Robbie Morgan, Shadow to Us, Lovable Christie, Key of Time, 15, Lunarium, and our new Patreons from the past couple of weeks, Ashley, Monica, and Michelle. Thank you all.
And thank you, Lovable Christie. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love that name, Lovable Christie.
Yes.
Every time I hear it, I'm like, so lovable.
Yes. All right. So our first topic of the podcast is you.
Oh.
So who are you, and why should we care
Well,
about you? No, it's
if they want to care, they don't have
yes.
to.
No,
But
I always find it as like, instead of just asking them like, hey, like, what do you do? Where can people find you? How do people know you? I always find it like an interesting way to sort of throw them off, to be like, why should we care about you? Because you answer it the same way as you would any of the other questions. So yes, GandaKris.
that
Is that how it's
true.
pronounced? GandaKris or GandaKris?
Yes.
GandaKris.
Yeah, it's a really weird nickname that I gave myself like years ago in high school, and it just stuck with me. So I was gonna change it actually, and then Amiibo blew up, and I was just like, oh, I gotta keep it. So
Now you're stuck with it.
now I'm stuck with it. But it definitely threw me off the curveball. Yeah, I
Oh.
just customize Amiibos. And I take the figurines and I turn them into other characters or different outfits. And I change the box art too by my friend Seth Hay. He does all the graphics. And I do people too. I make them into little me's. So that's what I do.
And what sort of started your passion for this? Because I assume it started out as just like a creative hobby for you, and it's turned into
Yeah.
sort of a job, I guess.
Well, it actually all started in high school. It's a really complicated, long story. I don't know if you guys want to hear it, but
Yeah,
um,
that's why you were here. That's why
yeah.
the 30 people are watching right now
Oh,
to hear your
perfect.
story.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was like really quiet in high school, especially in middle school. I was really, really like by myself. I didn't have any friends. My sister's friends were my friends, that sort of deal. I did get bullied a little bit in middle school as well. High school, not so much. But My sister dragged me to my first video game club. And it was really cool because then I just met a ton of people who had the same interests. I also tried Super Smash Bros. Melee for the first time. And then a lot of like my friends taught me how to play with like advanced techniques and they went to tournaments and all those things. So it was really cool to again make friends in that atmosphere. And at the same time, I was taking art too. So um, with art, like I would take the characters that I played in Melee, like Kirby, and make them out of clay or draw them or whatever. I actually even made like Minda's mask in ceramics because I told
Oh.
her it was like an Inca tribe design and she approved it and I was like, yes. So I made it.
Oh man.
Yeah, it was just really cool. That's how I combined two things that I loved. And and it was really awesome for my friends to even like give me requests on what to make, and then I would make it and they would sell it at like tournaments. So that's how me jumping into figurines um, became like a whole like thing. And then when Amiibo came out, it was just a lot easier for me to customize them. So I didn't have to start from scratch. It was like I had a base to work with, and it was just a lot easier. So that's the origin story.
Yeah, so that
But
it's really cool though. How did you feel about it once you started noticing that your little hobby was becoming popular with
um, well, it's crazy because again in like high school, middle school, I really did not like attention. It was neat the fact that I could make things and the attention wasn't drawn so much on me, but my art. So I could talk about my art all the time. But then when Amiibo hit, like they started doing research and trying to find out who I was. So I was a little hesitant on posting anything really
everyone?
about my life. I just made it like my art. Um, but then like ultimately I've always wanted to somehow be like an influencer or like a motivational speaker. And so I realized that I have to kind of burst that bubble and allow myself to grow. So um yeah, it's a little scary, putting yourself out there in the internet because you're going to get haters and
Yeah.
judgments and all that stuff. But definitely through these 2 years of custom amiibos, like I realized that you're, like you're going to have those haters, but you're going to have like people who are going to support your work and be there from day one. And that's the people that truly matter, especially your friends and family. So that's why like I find it like really important for myself to not be so scared or hesitant on posting about me. I think it's really important to like get the attention from people who really do matter, So just brush off those bad people and those haters.
Yes,
So
I think the meme, if anyone has seen the new Star Wars movies, the famous meme that's going around where Luke brushes off his shoulder. Getting a bit off topic, I guess. I just like anytime someone like on Twitter now mentions like a problem they have with someone or an issue that's come up, they just use that meme and it's Luke doing the whole shoulder brush thing. So as a
that's
callback from what you were saying.
perfect.
Yeah. So Daniel, do you have any questions for
All
Chris?
right, yeah. Well, what's the when in your opinion, obviously, coolest custom amiibo you've made?
Oh, I would have to say Armored Mewtwo.
Armored Media.
That one's my favorite, and just because like it brings back so many memories. So I
Mhm.
have I'm a middle child, so middle child is the forgotten child, but I love my sisters to death. And I remember a fond memory was going to the movie theater. We would walk to the movie theater, and every time a Pokemon movie came out, like we'd get the cards and we'd be like head over heels. And I remember that moment when Mewtwo Strikes Back, and I remember watching it, and it was just a fond memory that my sisters shared. So if anything, Pokemon were definitely like a huge like hit for me and my sisters. We collected all the cards, and actually that's how I started to draw too, was because of Pokemon.
Oh.
So
Trying to draw the artwork from the cards.
yeah, actually I had the 150 poster, and it was like it had
Oh,
the small characters on there. Right? And I started
cool.
drawing it, and I remember, and this is the first time I ever drew, but it was like Blastoise. So I would sit there from like hours on end trying to draw Blastoise, and like yeah, it was just crazy. No, I don't. I'm recording now. Sorry,
Oh,
that's
you're
my
fine.
mom. But yeah, so I remember like drawing Blastoise, and I sat there like for hours trying to draw him. And every time I made like one mess up, I would erase it and go back. And by the end of the day, I had this really cool looking Blastoise. And we cut it out, and my sisters would play with them and then rip them apart, and then I have to redraw it. So that's how I got my practice.
Yeah, there was a similar thing whenever I first started drawing. It was because of I had the Ocarina of Time walkthrough. I don't know which version it was, but it had like giant sized images of a bunch of the original artwork from Ocarina of Time. So when I wasn't playing the game, I began tracing over a lot of the stuff. Like I had huge images of Ganondorf and Link and some of the other stuff. So I began tracing from it, and then I actually started drawing the images without tracing it, just from looking at it or from memory. And I think I don't do much art anymore, but when I was in middle school and high school, I was always taking art classes, and that was sort of what inspired me to start doing that. And at one point, I also had like a how to draw Pokemon book where it like showed you the different steps of drawing a bunch of the Pokemon. So it's really
That's
cool that you
cool.
mentioned that Pokemon was sort of your inspiration. What about you, Daniel? Do you ever have any?
I used to draw a lot more. Yeah, same. Like when I was in school, I was drawing a lot. I hated art classes. Because actually I had some beef with teachers. That's why I was a beef. I was a renegade.
Okay.
Like not a cool rebel, like, but I was lame. But I was kind of a rebel in my own way. So I definitely had some issues with art teachers. So I took some art classes and hated them because I would do this. I worked like tirelessly on this great pastel piece, and the color blends are like really good. And it was like a lizard. It had individual scales. It was like very detailed. I was super proud of it. And she's like, just kind of glances at it and she's like, yeah, B, 78%. And I was like, that's so arbitrary. Like, I poured my heart into this, and you're just like throwing a number at it but like after 5 seconds of looking at it, like why? So
Yeah.
anyways, yeah, that was my issues with art class. Plus, I didn't like being told to draw a flower 20 times when I'm like, yeah, but I want to draw. But I would draw on my own time quite a lot, and like I made some really cool pieces.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know why it kind of fell off after school, and I haven't really done much art wise. I still dabble here and there with some things. I don't really draw, but I do a bit of music stuff. Like I fiddle with music a little bit. Getting off topic though.
Yeah. No, going back to what you were saying about like art classes and stuff, because someone can look at something and think it's like the best drawing or painting in the world, and then someone else could look at it and be like, it's okay.
Yeah.
So
well, that's true. It's very much like subjective in that way. But,
yeah.
Yeah. But have you seen some modern art? Like they go for millions, and it's like a splat on the wall.
Yeah.
And your lizard sounds way more better than that.
It was a cool lizard, man. I had drawn it like
What
the
the
horn was
heck?
like a crystal and it was glowing, and it was cool. But actually, if you dig on my channel enough, there are some videos where it's actually like on the wall in a couple shots, or like you'll see it kind of in the background.
I'll have to dig
but yeah,
through and
it's
do some
I know.
research.
You have to get a picture and bring it up.
Jesse's gonna go on a hunt through my channel trying to find the lizard.
Spot the lizard.
Yeah, I did that when I was like 17, so
Yeah. All right,
I
so
still have it for some reason.
all right, so a couple of more questions, and maybe Daniel has another that he wants to ask you. But with your with your YouTube channel, you recently passed 25,000 subscribers.
I did.
So that's a huge milestone.
I
So
know.
how does that feel that there are that many people? And then even on Twitter, there's almost as many people following you. So how does it feel knowing that there are that many people that are interested in what you're doing? Like you mentioned earlier, sometimes you have people that are hating on stuff, but like there may be one of them for every 1,000 people that love what you're doing. So the people that enjoy your content obviously outweighing the people that don't enjoy it. So what's it like for you knowing that there are that many people that support you and what you do?
I think it's just amazing. I think it's just incredible. Like if I could have them all in a room, that's a ton of people, Like I think people think about numbers too much sometimes, and they forget that each person is an individual and that's someone behind a keyboard, So just imagine if they were in the room. I mean, even having like 30 friends over is still like a significant amount. I mean, that's 30 friends that you would have never been able to meet. So like to have it in the thousands, like again, it's scary, but I love it. Like I want to say that definitely like my community, I rarely get any hating, to be honest. And even so, I'll just troll them and they turn out to be really nice people in the end, which is funny. But no, I have a really good community, and I think it's amazing that they support my work. And when it comes to any artists, like musicians or like actors or art in general, like having a support system like that is like so important these days if you want to try to make it as anything but like the standard career, like go to college, get a degree and all that stuff. So I think it's just amazing and I love it and I love each and every supporter. So yeah, they're like family.
My final question for you is, you are a Nintendo brand ambassador.
Yeah.
So for different people, like whether they're on YouTube, Twitch, they do stuff outside of YouTube or video making in general, there are still different people that are Nintendo brand ambassadors or Nintendo ambassadors for different reasons. So, what was it like for you whenever you were first, I guess, approached by Nintendo and welcomed on or asked to come on to join their brand ambassador program? And what kind of opportunities have you been able to uh, take because of all of your work with the Amiibo and the YouTube channel and being an ambassador? Like events that maybe you were invited to, or just special announcements or stuff that you were able to be a part of. Probably not the
So
simplest way to ask that question.
it's okay. I got the gist of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it was amazing. I don't know. I haven't, I guess, like really told this story. I have a video on YouTube that tells like the reason, like I guess, why I went after Nintendo and why I really wanted to become a Nintendo brand ambassador. I immediately out of high school actually wrote Nintendo a letter and I had sent them my artwork. And when I got it back in the mail, like they had sent me a letter back in the mail, I was super like excited. I opened it up and it was like the nicest decline letter in my entire
Oh,
life.
wow.
It was still, even though it was a decline, like it's still amazing to have received like a letter back stating like, oh, we love your work, but like, not this year, you're too young. But it was just more motivation for me to say, you know what, like I'm gonna try again in a couple of years and see how and how it goes. And um, like I've always again wanted to become part of Nintendo in some sort of way. And so last year is the year that I became a brand ambassador. Everything started happening for me, which was amazing. It was such an awesome opportunity. There's several people that I could thank for that, that have gotten me where I am today. And Nintendo sent me out actually to make a video for their YouTube channel that had custom amiibo in it. And like I taught the hosts, I taught, what was it, Kit and Krista, how to make their own custom
Oh,
amiibo.
from yes, everybody knows them. They're like the
Yeah,
most loved people
they're
from
they're
Nintendo's YouTube.
amazing. They're amazing. If I can take them both home and put a ribbon on top of their head, I would, because they're really they're just nice people. Like they're just so sweet. And that was another opportunity that like came around, and I do get invited to like E3, or like I get products that I want to review, such and such. So it was an amazing opportunity, and I can definitely like thank my community for getting me where I am, and like the motivation that that letter gave me all those years ago. Like I never stopped taking the proper steps towards, somehow becoming part of Nintendo, and never give up is what
Yeah.
I could definitely say. Just never give up.
What were
You know,
the requirements that you were finally able to make this past year to become a Nintendo brand ambassador? Was it just that they thought you were too young or too inexperienced when you first applied, or what was the situation?
well, when I first applied, it was straight out of high school, and that was like several years ago. That was like 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago. And they didn't have a Nintendo brand ambassador program at the time. But I had made like charms. I wanted to make my own jewelry line with like Pokeballs and,
Oh,
like in Mario mushrooms and whatever. Like I made a ton of random Pokeball charms and whatever, and I sent that in with the letter and everything. And I even had like printouts of like art that I did and stuff like that. It was really professional. I was really proud of myself at that age. I was surprised myself, to be honest. But they sent everything back, and then the letter was also in there. And yeah, I was just too young. I was like 18, I think. When I sent that. But yeah, and then when it came to becoming Nintendo brand ambassador, I actually went to E3 for the first time last year. And then I met a couple of people and I gave them my information and I was just like, hey, like if there's some sort of way that you can, help me into becoming like a Nintendo brand ambassador, like I would appreciate it. And yeah, and I had to go through like a whole interview and a whole process and then I got the email and it was official and yeah, and it was really solidifying. It was just like it was so amazing. It was like something that I've always dreamt of coming true. And I cannot thank Nintendo and for the people who truly believed in me that I could do it. So yeah, it was a lot of work and a lot of ups and downs, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Right. And moving to you, Daniel, do you have anything to
It's a
add?
bit broad. Yeah, it's a broad question, but what if it's not a secret? Are there any, future upcoming projects that you want to share with us or any
Wow.
plans?
I do have one project that I'm doing, and I don't know if I can say too much, but I am making two specific characters from Persona and Ruby, and that's for an upcoming project. So I don't know which characters yet, but I have to do it from those two games. So I'm super excited, and I have a couple of other Miis coming out that are going to be given to really cool people, and I have more YouTube videos coming soon.
Awesome. All
All
right.
right.
And finally, before we move on to the news topics, for anyone that's watching that may be a fan of yours or is just now becoming a fan of yours, do you have anything to say to them if they have similar interests and hobbies and stuff to maybe motivate them to keep on pursuing?
Oh yeah, like I on my YouTube like channel, I definitely want to start talking a lot more about like motivation and sometimes even me like behind the scenes and in a lot of artists behind the scenes, they put out like pictures that are happy and life is good and my life is amazing. But even for me like I've had a lot of ups and downs and I go through a lot of things. And again, like these last 2 years were amazing. But I mean, there were certain times where it's just like it was really hard, like being an artist or independent artist, being a YouTuber, being anything that you want to be these days. It's a lot harder, and I just say keep going. Like if I had given up after I got that rejection letter from Nintendo, I wouldn't be where I am today. Like I wouldn't be as interested or as passionate. So even though I, was declined, like I took it as, you know what, like this is my goal for the next couple of years. Like this is what I want to do. And I'm going to put like 100% into it, and I'm going to work hard. And that's how I ended up getting Nintendo brand ambassadors because of my hard work and my family and friends and the people who supported me. So if you have any interests or hobbies that you really want to pursue, I wholeheartedly believe that you can do it. You just have to take the proper steps and, even the small battles, you'll win and lose some, but when you do win, it's still a win and you should appreciate that and keep moving forward. So, yeah.
Right. And for the people who may be interested in purchasing some of your amiibo, are they available for commission, or how do you like give them away for like, giveaways or for certain people, or are they commissioned work that someone could pay you?
So I used to do commission work, but then I realized that it's so much work. So anyone who's an artist and does commissions, like kudos to you. I don't like it. Like cuz you're answering the emails, you're making the commission and then you have to ship it and then answer them back and it's just like this whole process and you're getting like a ton of orders. It is so overwhelming. Like it's incredible sometimes how people can do that. So I don't do commission work anymore. I give away all of my work. So if you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, I give a ton of my art away. And I love it too. I think it's especially when the person like wins and they receive it, like it's just heartwarming. It's just really nice to see that they appreciate my work. And yeah,
Mhm.
so if you follow me, you might win.
And for the people who are interested in following video, because I'm sure there's a lot of people that are coming across you for the first time watching this video, and I assume the other half are people who are fans of yours and came across this little interview. So, for the people that don't know, where can they find you, follow you on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube?
So my what is it? So my YouTube is youtube.com/GandaKris. So GandaKris. Instagram and Twitter are different. It's Miss GandaKris. So instead it's MISS and then GandaKris. So yeah, that's where
Alright.
I'm more social on my YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter.
Right. And for the people that are watching the edited video, there will be links to everything in the description below. So, are there any final things that you or Daniel would like to say before we move on to the actual news?
No, not really. I mean, I thank you again for having me on here. I do appreciate it. I am so sorry that I was late because I Googled the wrong like Pacific time standard thing, and I was like,
Oh no, you're fine.
so
Daniel
I was
Daniel
like,
actually
oh, you're from Canada. You're probably from like the East Coast.
West Coast.
West Coast.
Yeah.
There you
West
go. But
Coast.
yeah.
yeah,
So
so Daniel he actually messaged me around 4 Eastern, so a little over an hour ago, and was like, "Are we about to start the podcast?" And I was like, "No, it's in an hour." And
Because you
he,
called me, man.
oh yeah, I gave him a
I was
call
like,
on
uh-oh.
Facebook, and I guess I worried him that we were starting
Yeah.
sooner.
I was like, am I late?
It's okay. So here I rolled out of bed and I was like, I gotta get ready.
Also, I was just, following you on all your socials while you were shouting them out. I was like, might as well. And I just noticed this Satura Iwata amiibo here. I'll show it to the camera here for people watching the video. And I'm like, wow, that is incredible. Some of these Mii ones are incredible. But what made you decide to do Iwata as an amiibo?
Well, actually, that is the second version of the first version that I ever made. And the first one that I've ever made, it was so funny because it got way more attention than I thought it was going to get. Um, he had just passed away, and I was so inspired to make it that night and finish it the next morning that I did that. And instead of having it commissioned, like having people ask me, like, oh, can you make me one? Can you make me one? I actually donated that to St. Jude. So it raised
Ooh,
about $2,000.
that's awesome.
And all the proceeds went there. Yeah, and it was really cool. And I woke up, and next thing you know, like Kotaku and IGN and Yahoo Gaming, like spread the word, and that's how it got so many proceeds, and it was awesome. And yeah, that one I never commissioned ever again. If I make it, it's always like a giveaway or it goes to like a charity. So yeah, that one's one of my favorite ones for sure.
Yeah,
Do you ever have a problem like getting enough amiibos to work with though? Because like sometimes it can be hard to find enough, right?
Oh, especially now. Like,
Yeah.
so during those days when like the Amiibo hunt was on, it was
Hmm.
really hard. Like even I would stay up late just to like try to pre-order it, or I'd wake up early and go to like GameStop and Best Buy. It was crazy. And I love those days actually because then I got to meet a lot of people in my community. But
Yeah.
these days now it's like there's not really a hunt, but you still have to find them because they're starting to get pretty rare. And yeah, it's not as crazy and as fun.
yeah, I imagine that it can, like, especially at the beginning when a lot of the amiibo were really rare and hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
Not just an expensive hobby, but like just one that's like you may have the idea to create something, but because you can't actually buy it, then yeah, like because I'm sure like some amiibo are a lot easier to transform into other creations. So like if you're trying to find something very specific to make something, you might not be able to make it at all, or at least have to alter it from a different one. So
Mm-hmm.
Very, very true. There are some that were really hard to find. If anything, the most I've ordered is definitely Pikachu because I call that like the Barbie doll of Amiibo. You can literally dress them up in anything. So I remember ordering from Best Buy, and they're just like, "So you have like an order for like a bunch of Pikachu?" It was just like it just came up on our system, so we're gonna have to do a check because I think what they were thinking is that I like resell it, so I'll get it, resell it. But that wasn't the case. They looked at like my custom Amiibo and they're just like, "Oh, that looks good. Well, you're cleared. We're gonna send you those Pikachu. You alternate them enough to where it's like, it's completely different, and you're fine." And I was like, "Cool, thank you."
Yeah, I was meaning to ask that, like the where you're altering them, and some of the times you were customizing them and stuff. Was there ever any like bad messages from Nintendo or negative stuff like asking you to stop or something? Because I know a lot of times someone is creating something Nintendo related from their own artwork or whatever, they can like get like a cease and desist, or like Nintendo's like, hey, can you please not? So you never received anything like that from like,
No, thankfully, no.
yeah,
I think it's because I've alternated enough to where it's like, and I'll say custom amiibo. I don't think it's because I'm claiming any of the characters either, So,
yeah.
yeah, I never got it. But I mean, I guess they liked me enough to put me on the team, so that's pretty awesome. But yeah, I never got that. I've heard some instances where it's like that, but for me, thankfully, I never got one.
Yeah,
But
that also makes me wonder, like, has there ever been a specific amiibo that you tried to create but weren't able to, or like an idea that you had that you weren't able to physically make into something?
ooh, see, I don't know. I
See,
can't really think of
I was
any,
ready to move
to
on
be
to the
honest.
news stories, but all these
Sorry.
questions keep coming up.
No, it's okay. I can't really think of any. My determination is pretty high. My brain always constantly runs like a million miles per hour. So if I have an idea, like for Wada, I would literally stay up all night just to finish it in the morning. So when Detective Pikachu was announced for the first time, I stayed up all night just to finish it and release it the next day. So my determination's pretty strong. Like there are ones where I'm not completely satisfied with the work.
Yeah.
Um, but overall I've been able to make what I've wanted to. It's more about like I guess quality, and making sure if it's better than the last one I made. So yeah.
All right. Daniel, do you have the news stories pulled up,
It's
or at
another
least the
tab.
first one? All right.
Oh yeah, Nintendo Labo.
All right. I will let you get the second news story. But I'll go ahead and
Sure,
start
man.
first. All right. This it's really really hilarious. So, or at least I think it is. It's having a
Are
lot
you
of trouble
guys
bringing it up.
excited for it?
Yeah, no, I was having trouble trying to pull it up on the news story. So
Oh, okay.
let's see. All right, it finally loaded for me. So
Better late than
Nintendo,
never.
yeah, Nintendo has just announced the Nintendo Labo set, which is coming in two different varieties. Both come with a game or software to use with your Nintendo Switch, as well as all of the cardboard pieces. The first set is their variety set that comes with like the fishing pole and like the little dancing man. I don't really know what exactly they're calling them. There's like a 13 key piano, the fishing pole, the motorbike, and then there's the one that has like the big backpack that you can put on that turns you into like a virtual robot on the game. The whole concept is completely crazy to me, but at the same time, it's really awesome. Like, it has me excited that Nintendo is doing something very different. I know whenever they first announced that they were going to be, or the rumor was they were going to be announcing some sort of add-on or accessory for the Nintendo Switch. A lot of people, I guess, just assumed more custom themed Joy-Cons. But they released this video and it's like a bunch of cardboard that you can cut out and do everything Um, the robot game seems, I don't exactly know what the name of it is, but if you guys remember a few years back with the Wii U, there was on the Nintendo Treehouse, there was a segment where Miyamoto was using the Wii U gamepad to sort of act like a robot on the TV, where he played as like a giant robot. It was the same one where they showed off the moon base security thing that it ended up turning into the
Star Fox
yeah
guard, right?
yeah it ended up becoming that, and it looks like the giant robot fighting game that they had has turned into this robot game that they have coming with Nintendo Labo. There's, like I mentioned, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it. I was reading that the piano itself took 2 hours for someone to like put together for the first time. That could have been exaggerated a little bit, though. I don't really know how true the source on that is, but if it is 2 hours to put together this piano, then I don't really know what to think about it. Like, it's something like I'm excited for it to play around with it. I'm sure it's something like my daughter she'll be turning 3 later this year. I don't know if she's quite old enough to play with it or try to build it, but what do you guys think about this? Because it seems like something that is obviously directed straight towards kids, but then there also has to be the interest from the parents or adults to help them put it together, because like the robot suit has like a lot of strings and pulleys and stuff, and it seems a little bit too complicated for just a kid to sit and put together themselves. So, starting with our special guest, what are your thoughts on this whenever they first announced it and everything that you've been seeing?
Well, I'm pretty sure the parents are going to be building it.
It's almost certainly.
It's like that
As
project
a parent,
that
I
gets
can
assigned.
confirm.
Yeah, it's like that project that gets assigned in class, and then like the parent did it, and really not the kid. you know. So
Yeah.
no, I think I love it. I really do love it. It's really nice. For me, it's like it brings me back to when, like Pokemon didn't have figurines, so we had to draw it out and cut it out and make it our own. So this is a good example of, use what you have. It's very imaginative, it's very creative, and I think kids need that, these days. Because my first thought when we were like children was going outside and wanting to play, and these days I don't see as many kids out on the street wanting to play, and more so on the internet and video games and all that stuff. So I think this is amazing for kids, especially. I love it. I'm gonna build it.
Yeah. So what about you, Dan? What were your initial thoughts on this?
I guess I'm not surprised that it's appealing to you, Chris. It's how crafty you are already. But
no, yeah, I didn't even think about that. This goes perfect with your.
It's pretty much a big giant craft, right? I think it's really neat. My biggest concern is I really worry about like the quality of the cardboard degrading, like with use. Like that is my biggest concern, is like how much can you reuse it after you build it? Am I gonna have to be like, harvesting all my recycling to to use for cardboard? Like, because you can just basically download the like the printouts with the designs and then use any cardboard if you really wanted to, right?
Yeah, but the initial purchase of I think it's like $60 for the variety pack, and then the robot pack is $80. That cost does bring in the software itself. So
yeah, it would be neat to have like a slightly less expensive version that came with just the software. I think that should be an option. Maybe maybe even like a later release to like have the initial launch with all the sets and stuff, and then a later release Labo with just the software. But like I said, it's really cool though. Like I really want to build this stuff. Like I saw that, I was like, that robot suit, I want that. But then I'm like, where am I gonna put it in my house?
Well, like even with the robot suit, like it has the cardboard because it comes from the backpack to your elbow, and then from your elbow to your hand, and it's like that's fine for a kid's hand, but it's like if an adult buys this and wants to play with it, they're going to have to like be
I'm not
gonna like I have a 5-year-old, he's not gonna build this whole thing by himself, so I'm gonna end up building it with him, and there's no way I'm not gonna play with it if I do. I'm
Yeah.
just putting that out there.
And then
And
So
kids are kids, right? So I hope
yeah,
it's sturdy enough to
that's
survive.
my
yeah,
concern. Is
well,
like he's gonna destroy it.
the
It actually is
cardboard
generally
did
pretty
look
good,
thick,
but
so
that's
like
the thing.
it doesn't look like little
You
thin
think
cardboard.
hardcore sees. Um, but that's the thing though, is like he's generally pretty good like about not destroying things. Like he's really good with his he has a 3DS and he's like very careful with the game carts and he knows to hold a disc by the middle with his finger. Like I've taught him well on protecting software. But like with the cardboard pieces, so like him playing with the Switch and stuff is fine. I have confidence that he's not gonna like smash it, right? Because he knows not to. With the cardboard, the whole point is it's a more active play. So I'm like, okay, he's gonna smash the cardboard for sure. And then I'm gonna maybe have to rebuild it or fix it. And I'm just wondering like how much I can like take this long term. It might be a fun few afternoons, but is it gonna be like a sustainable, I don't know, not a sustainable future, but like is it gonna be a game that I can play in the long term as well? Or
Yeah,
is it just gonna be like it's just gonna
something
be
you
like
can come back
I
to.
played it for a few weeks and that was it. Uh, so yeah, I don't know. That other than that, like I think I might still get it because it does look really fun, especially some of the like the whole having the steering, like it's not a steering wheel, like the handlebars and like the Switch sits in it and then you're playing a
Mhm.
driving game and stuff like that. Like they look really cool. So I probably might get it anyways, just because I'm a total sellout when it comes to Nintendo stuff.
Yeah,
They
it
got me
makes me
right.
think if any of this could be incorporated into future games. Like they showed the fishing mini game. Obviously, a lot of this looks like stuff they would be able to implement into like Animal Crossing style
Yeah.
games, or like even uh, Pokemon games. There's like a lot of fishing incorporated in it. Zelda, like Ocarina of Time, typically some Zelda games have fishing mini games. So it makes me wonder
Mhm.
if at any point if they'll bring some of these Labo stuff over to give you the option to use them in other games, so you aren't just stuck with the one set of mini games that it comes with. Like, is there going to be like how there was Wii Sports and then Wii Sports Resort? Like, is there going to be another
Mhm.
iteration of this? And then if there are, is it going to have its own set of cardboard stuff? So
Yeah.
that's, and then I really hope that you can buy the full set with all of the cardboard pieces and the software, as it said, for like $60 or $80. But if you were just buying the cardboard, I hope that they have something towards like $20 or something.
Mhm.
So, in case, as you were saying, if something does break or a drink or something spills on it, it gets wet, starts like crumbling, isn't as strong, so it can't hold its shape. I hope
Mhm.
that they do something to where you can buy extra pieces and you're not having to spend like $60 every single time something tears up.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
hope so.
I'm a little stuck on the price point though. Like if it's that expensive, like it's not going to be an issue for me because Nintendo charges. They don't like to sell things at a loss, and I get it. They have a business. But then like I just know there's going to be a lot of people complaining about paying that much money for cardboard, and like they're kind of missing the concept of it, I think. But I just see that being a complaint that's going to come up a lot.
Yeah.
I think so too. Yeah. As long as they put out consistent like content for this, like, if it's
Hmm.
like maybe a skateboard in the future or something like that, I don't know. But, like just more content. I think that's the most important thing is that people will pay that price if there's more to it than what's shown. And I think that's the case because you can pretty much do anything with cardboard, right? When we were kids, I'm pretty sure we made like a whole house out of
Oh
a
yeah.
giant TV box, right?
Yeah.
So I think when it comes down to that, I think it'll work.
That's.
I think so. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Nintendo
Mhm.
has to up their game on this one a little bit, I think, in
Yeah.
order to sell it.
And like I was looking at the way some of it works, like the Joy-Con on the piano, like you set the Switch console inside, so like you're seeing the screen on it. Then you like have to put the Joy-Con with the IR sensor into a little hole, And when you press the keys, at first I was thinking maybe it would tap the screen, and that's what is causing the notes to play. But it's the IR sensor in the Joy-Con. Um, the way that you build the keyboard, there are little silver stickers on the inside of it for each of the keys, and the IR sensor, depending on where the sticker is or which one's reflecting light back at it, is the note that you're playing. So
Huh.
it's not as simple as when you download like a keyboard on your iPad and you can just touch the screen. Like there's a lot of really complicated tech to do something very, very simple.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me
I wonder if they even thought about having it tap the screen. Someone at Nintendo's gonna watch this. They're like, "Oh, oh no!"
Just bring the cardboard to the screen.
Yeah, so it's like there's a lot of really ingenious ways to do things very simple with this, and I understand that they might want to have different ways to use the Joy-Cons, so that way all of the different pieces of the Switch are involved. But then it gets even more complicated with the robots. I think like there was you have to put a Joy-Con in the headband that you wear for the robot suit. There's one in the back. There's ones on your hands. So like some of these to fully use all of them. Yeah, like you need like 4 Joy-Cons or like 2 different sets of Joy-Cons to fully use some of this stuff. So,
I mean, I have 4 Joy-Cons and the Pro controller and stuff, but I feel like a lot of people have a Switch and they have just the Switch and 2 Joy-Cons. So that might be also another sticking point.
Yeah.
So
like that's essentially my final thoughts on it. Is like it basically seems like a lot of very complicated ways to do things that would have otherwise been very simple mini games. But it shows how creative Nintendo is with this stuff. It's like instead of just allowing the cardboard to tap the screen to make the sounds, they're using the IR sensor. So starting with you,
use for the IR.
Yes.
Rather than eating hamburger mini game.
Exactly. So what are your thoughts on like just final thoughts before we move on to the next news story of the Nintendo Labo?
Because I'm very imaginative. So actually, when you were talking, I like was picturing what the conference meeting must have looked like. Like, hey guys, I have an idea. We're gonna use cardboard. And like, wait, what? And he's like, no, hear me out. And then he just starts like pitching it. I wonder who came up with this because it's just really.
I hope he had like a prototype. And he
I'm gonna
walked
look
into the
that up
conference
really
room with
quick.
the robo suit, and he's like, "This is what we're doing."
That would be the best. That would be.
Walks in
that's
with
the
the
perfect
robo suit.
imagery.
And they're like, "Oh no."
No. He's gone crazy. But I like it. I cannot wait to see what they come up with. I'm pretty sure there's going to be more variety packs to buy and to purchase and make and I'm excited. I think it's really cool. And again, it gives an opportunity for kids to be really creative. Instead of sticking their face in a screen, it's like they actually have stuff that they can build. It's like Legos. Because I grew up with Legos. So it's like every Christmas, my parents would give me like the Lego set and I would be sitting there trying to build everything, and I think this is like a bigger scale. I would have loved to have this when I was a kid. So.
Yeah, it is something that, like, even if you aren't interested in one of the little mini games that comes with it, it looks like there's a lot of variety there to where you'll find something that will interest you. And I can imagine every single kid wanting to just put on the big robot suit and have fun with it, but I can imagine the terror of like a kid having the backpack on and everything and sitting down or falling over and crushing all of it because there's like the whole pulley system with the strings and everything. So there's a lot of stuff there, but I brought up the way that they turned the one mini game into the Star Fox Guard game because the robot game was first introduced, and from what I've been seeing online, this was I guess Miyamoto and some of the other developing teams or people that was in charge trying to take the ideas that they had from previous games or concepts that they couldn't turn into a full game and trying to repackage them and reuse them in new and inventive ways. So
Mhm.
I'm wondering, like, what mini games and stuff that we haven't seen that are also included in this. Like maybe we'll see something else that Nintendo showed off at one point, but never got around to actually releasing or using. So it
Mhm.
seems like this is just a fun pack of a lot of different uh, things that they couldn't necessarily sell as a single product. So they're just compiling it all into this. So,
Hmm.
and it releases on April 20th, so in about 2 months from now. So I'm really interested. Are you going to be buying this, Chris?
Yes, of
Yes.
course. I want to paint it.
Yeah, that
I'm
was another thing. It comes with all of
Yeah.
the stickers, the designs,
Mhm.
of course.
Super excited. I really love this. But yeah, I'm gonna just be really careful for the
Yeah.
first, for the most part. So
So
Daniel should just dress up in on all the all the gear, to be honest.
yeah. So which one
Show
are
me
you
some
going
photos.
to?
I would love to take a picture and then I'll share it.
Noted.
Which one are you planning on buying? Because there are the two different ones: the variety pack and then the robot pack.
I think the variety, because I like options
All
for
right.
sure. I like to, have like different things that I want to make, and honestly, I'll be happy with any of them. I just like the fact that you can customize it.
All right. And what about
To
you,
be
Daniel?
honest, I really just want to paint it.
I like the look of the variety pack too. I'm actually just gonna to gander through the both of them because I haven't really. But the robot kit is pretty much. It looks like just the robot, which is cool. I think that's the coolest part. So it kind of sucks to have to get that separate. But it looks like there's just more to do for with the variety pack.
Yeah.
Toy-Con 1. So yeah, it's yeah, it looks really cool. I like all the little robots and stuff. Like I like little crafts and stuff and
Yeah. They had
yeah.
the like remote controlled
Yeah.
bikes and stuff that you could build with the other one that like uses the vibrations of the controllers to actually move around, which is
Mhm.
really interesting. So
You should probably, if you do happen to get the robot one, you should probably make it look like Flood from Mario Sunshine or like
Hey, yeah.
oh
Gamecube. That would be pretty awesome. I think that'd be pretty cool. Try to make it look exactly like that and then
That would
run
be
around
really
in
cool.
the house.
yeah, and
You should get this because
the
you've
the
clearly thought about this more than I have.
the cool thing about this is if you are like interested in like crafting and stuff, where it has the little, it almost looks like a cardboard stick person that you attach to the Joy-Con to do this. Like you could potentially make little cardboard figures that looks like Mario, Luigi, Link, and all of the
Mhm.
other stuff. So you can get creative yourself with it. Uh, but moving on to our next news story, Daniel, why don't you go ahead and take us through this? The Nintendo Life news story on 4K and
Yeah.
VR.
So Nintendo, I'll just read the headline here from Nintendo Life. Nintendo reiterates that it is not interested in virtual reality or 4K support. Now, I mean, kind of take this with a grain of salt because they also said they weren't interested in mobile games, and we have a few of those now. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but the gist of it, they kind of they reiterated, that they don't feel like it will appeal to the general public, and so they feel it'd be a like audience limiting move to do that. There's a quote here.
yeah.
It
Go
says
ahead and
if
read
you
the full quote. It's just 3 paragraphs
yeah
there.
yeah if you look at VR headsets, I doubt they can appeal to mainstream. Consumers are not patient with entertainment if you're not able to deliver an all-inclusive package. As far as 4K is concerned, it is useful to invest in a technology that has not been adopted by the majority. Where are 4K TVs now? Is it a good idea to invest in a technology before consumers do? We can't invest in everything, and what novelty would we bring compared to our competitors? If we do the exact same thing than everyone else, we're bound to die because we are smaller than them. With the Switch, we offer different uses, adapted to players' paces of life. Its advantage is being able to fit into your daily life. So yeah, I think he's kind of right about that. The whole appeal of the Switch is that it's an HD gaming system that you can take on the go. You can take anywhere, and then you can plug it into your TV, and that it's accessible to everyone. This actually kind of reminds me of the Wii when it came out. It did not have HDMI support,
Hmm.
and people were really, like, why? Xbox has it, PlayStation 3 has it, but Wii doesn't. And the reason was like most people who are buying a Wii do not have HD TVs. And so they wanted to. I think they should have had maybe a port built in, and then you could buy an HDMI cable if you wanted to. But that's another story. By the time the Wii U came out, mostly everyone had HD TVs, so it had HDMI support. So it's just sort of they're trying to not limit their accessibility. That's something Nintendo's pretty well known for is that level of accessibility. And um, yeah, that's what I gotta say about that.
Yeah,
Or they're
it's
playing mind games, and then they're on that
Could be.
8K.
yeah.
Yeah,
Could
so
Also,
be.
who knows? I'm just
it
kidding.
it reminds me, like, I always hate saying negative stuff about Nintendo, because like you, Daniel and I, our YouTube channel is also a Nintendo brand ambassador. So anytime like something negative comes up about Nintendo, I just like hesitate to mention it. But in the past, there were interviews where Miyamoto, the one I always reference is when the Nintendo 3DS first came out, he was being interviewed by IGN or someone, and they asked him, uh, do you have anything for the Nintendo fans who are hesitant to buy a Nintendo 3DS because they're looking forward to a 3DS XL or whatever the next iteration of the 3DS is? Because at this point in time, there were like the 2DS, or not 2DS, the regular DS, DSi, DSi XL, and all of those. So there's like 4 or 5 different versions of this. And during this interview, Miyamoto said that Nintendo had no plans to produce any other variations of the 3DS, that it was just the Nintendo 3DS. That was it. A couple of months later, they officially announced the 3DS XL. So it was something where they were working on it, but he wasn't allowed to say it. So
Yeah.
with
And also,
this,
they change their mind about things sometimes.
yeah,
I think when they were asked if they would ever do mobile games, and then they said if we ever did mobile games, we wouldn't be Nintendo. And then they did mobile games. That's
yeah,
just my favorite example. So, sometimes they feel out the market. If they're not feeling it, they won't touch it, and they'll be adamantly against it. And then later down the line, they might come around, right? Who
yeah.
knows?
Well, I always think back to that interview with Miyamoto, and then of course now we have the 3DS, 3DS XL, 2DS,
2DS,
new 2DS
2DS XL.
XL, and then the new 3DS
Yeah.
and the new 3DS XL. But what he was saying is understandable, and it also their talk about VR reminds me when the Nintendo Switch was first being rumored. There were patents with the Nintendo Switch to where there's like a case or something that you could put on your head, slip the Switch console down inside of it. There were patents leaked about that, and everyone was talking about, is the Switch going to support VR? Obviously, like in the same way that you can put your cell phone into a headset and have like pseudo VR tech, the Switch obviously would be able to do that as well. It'd be a heavy headset.
Yeah, I think it would be too heavy.
But you would be
Imagine
able.
building that out of cardboard.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
there's like Nintendo has I think they've probably experimented with it at some point. Obviously, they have the patent for it. So whether or not they're actually going to do it, who knows? I think it's very interesting that like this report comes out, because something else that I think about was when PlayStation first mentioned the PSVR. There was an interview between Jeff Keighley, who runs the video game awards every year. It was just last month, I believe, the last video game awards. So there was an interview where he stopped Reggie, the president of Nintendo of America, once he was leaving the PlayStation booth, and he was like, "Hey, what did you check out any of the PlayStation games? What did you like?" And he said that he was interested in the PlayStation VR, and he was checking out some of the VR experiences they had. and he was saying that it was fun and everything else. But then there was other interviews where Reggie says that there's no interest in VR. So like you have sort of conflicting stuff. Um, so yeah. But what are your thoughts on all of this, Daniel and Chris? We can start with you again, Chris. Like, just do you think Nintendo will ever be doing VR again after? Because it could just be they want to stay away from it because of the Virtual Boy. Obviously, didn't do too well a long time ago.
We learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, but at the same time, that was like, over 20 years ago when the console wasn't very powerful and it was just a bunch of red colors. So
A little bit ahead of its time, maybe.
yeah.
Yeah. I think so
Yeah.
eventually.
All right, what about you, Dick? Do you think Nintendo could be doing anything anytime soon with VR? Or obviously not 4K, they would need to come out with an entirely new console for that. So
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna touch 4K this time. The thing with VR is that, like, I don't know, it's Nintendo's such a curveball. Like, they're a wild card with what they're gonna do next, and I love that about them, because it's like with the other consoles, you basically know that the next one is just going to be the newer, more powerful, harder, better, faster, stronger version of the old one. And Nintendo is gonna come out left field with something, which is why I've always been a Nintendo fan. I had a PlayStation 1 and I had an Xbox 360, and those were the only consoles, non-Nintendo consoles, that I really got invested in. Which is kind of, I've been still toying with the idea of a PS4, but Nintendo they just take all my money. I just give it to them because I see what they're doing and I'm like, this is something fun and interesting and new. I'm getting a little off topic, but so with VR, like, they might not now, but they could in the future. Like, after the Virtual Boy was your example, you probably wouldn't have expected them to ever do anything with 3D, because that was the Virtual Boy's. I think part of its big shtick was that it was 3D gaming.
yeah.
Like you said, ahead of its time, and now we have the 3DS, which is like really pushing the 3D, which I never used the 3D setting, but it's there, and the 3DS has been pretty successful, I would say. Has a huge install base. So yeah, it could happen in the future. Yeah, it's just hard to say when.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts on this, Chris? Like,
Yeah, eventually. I think
eventually.
when everyone can get like their hands on virtual reality or like 4K, obviously, I think that's when they're going to come out with it, because they want to make sure that everyone can at least have, that product and not limit it to like someone who does. Like my friend has a VR system, but like I'm not going to go out and spend $2,000 for what, you know what I'm saying? So it's like eventually it's understandable why they don't want to do it now, but of course later down the road. I mean, I don't even have a 4K like TV or anything like that. That's still not even available for a lot of people. And at CES, they just announced 8K, which is even crazier. But so when the market opens up for that, I think that's when they're going to jump on it.
Yeah, and when it's commonplace, like like with the HD TVs of the past, like no one as it has to be commonplace that just something everyone has first.
Yeah.
Before they would go into it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would really like to see, because as we can see just from the Nintendo Labo thing, our last news story, Nintendo, as creative as they are, I think there's a lot of stuff that they could do that Microsoft, PlayStation, or some of the other third parties wouldn't necessarily be able to think of without, because they don't feel their audience would be interested in it. But with Nintendo, like, they're a lot more creative and come up with a lot of new concepts that I don't think anyone would have ever, like, if you told someone to name off 100 different things they expected Nintendo to do this year, I don't think a single one of that would be. They're gonna create a game where you use cardboard to play as a giant robot. So, as creative as they are, like, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that they could make with 3D. So our final news story comes from Kotaku, where they say, so there are now PlayStation figures called Totaku? Totaku? Is that how you pronounce it? I hope
think
that's
so.
Yes. So they say
Sure.
the PlayStation licensed line of amiibo-looking toys come by way of Think, the merchandise outfit owned by GameStop, and are due to launch on March 23rd. There are a total of 7 different figures, including God of War's Kratos, Tekken's Heihachi, I believe that's how it's pronounced. Heihachi. Oh, okay.
Heihachi.
Yeah, I seen a
from
C there.
Tekken.
Sorry. Yeah.
That's
Bloodborne's Hunter, Wipeout's Phasar FX 350, Little Big Planet
whatever that
Sackboy,
is.
yeah, Parappa the Rapper, and Crash Bandicoot, called Totaku, not to be confused with either Kotaku or its editor-in-chief, Stephen. I don't know why they put that. The toy line is reminiscent of Nintendo's Amiibo, with each character standing just a few inches tall and affixed to a small platform. So these, obviously, I think anyone seeing them would come to the conclusion that PlayStation or Sony realized how successful Nintendo's Amiibo are and wanted to sort of create their own line of stuff. Obviously, the toys to life genre started with like Disney Infinity, Skylanders,
yeah.
and a bunch of other stuff. Nintendo obviously has been the most successful, but I would say that their character lineup are more tiered towards something like this as opposed to other developers, because I would say like Mario and everyone's going to be a lot more famous than Spyro. As lovable as Spyro is, I never really got into Skylanders, but everybody seems to love Nintendo's. So them releasing toys that you could also use in your games made perfect sense. It seems PlayStation is stepping in that direction, but these are toys, just little minifigures that aren't going to necessarily work with your PlayStation games. But if these are successful, I could potentially see PlayStation doing something to where in a future lineup or like a next iteration of these Totaku, however they're pronounced, will end up working with some of the games if these are successful. So what are your thoughts on this? This wasn't necessarily something that I would have mentioned in a normal podcast, but I think it kind of goes along with what you're here for, your work on custom amiibo and stuff. So what are your thoughts on this? Do you think you're going to get creative with these, or are you going to be sticking with amiibo? How does this look for you?
Well, I'm definitely gonna get the figurine, take it off, and put it on an amiibo base. I'm just kidding. But we could do that. No, I think it's cool. I definitely have 3 that I really want to get, which is Little Big Planet, Crash Bandicoot, and then Parappa the Rapper, because I grew up with those ones. If they come out with a Spyro one, though, I want to get that one too. But like I love it. I know I'm gonna customize Little Big Planet for sure, just because there's so many costumes in that one, and I love that game too. As much
Yeah.
like I like play PlayStation as well too. So Little Big Planet for sure, I can customize that.
I always like the shark costume with Sackboy. That's the
Yeah,
one that I
they're
always
so
play with.
cute. They're so cute. So I like it. I mean, who knows? Maybe they did sneak some hardware in there, and they're just saying there is none.
They're
But
just saying there's no NFC hardware,
yeah,
but who knows?
see?
It's gonna be
Well,
like
you never
Bluetooth
know.
or something.
Yeah.
Never
So
know.
are there any specific PlayStation characters that you would like to see
Ooh.
with this?
Where's Spyro? I mean, I
Where's
guess they had
Spyro?
Skylanders already, but still, like
I
he
want
was
like an
he was one of the
original
OG
Spyro.
PlayStation. Yeah, OG PS1.
That would
Yeah.
be amazing. I would love that. Love, love, love that. What's another one that I
So
think
no
of? Like,
sign of Tomb Raider, Lara Croft, or anything like that.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
that's what I was kind of talking about earlier. Is like if you look at all of Nintendo's stuff, even the Disney Infinity, which some of their characters would tend to look more realistic, but in that game they're portrayed more cartoony and exaggerated proportions and stuff. and their figures look like that too. But with Kratos here, it looks just like Kratos does in the game. So it's really interesting to see someone making these types of toys that look more realistic than they do cartoony. So like
Yeah.
if
You know what?
they
I wonder what the price point is now that you
They're
mentioned that.
10
Because
bucks.
they're
They are-
10 bucks.
$10. So it's a little bit
Really?
cheaper than
The
Amiibo.
quality is crazy. Like
But
the
I mean, if
details and
you
everything.
when Nintendo first showed Amiibo, they looked really good quality, and then the first wave came out were lower quality than they showed, like quite
Mm.
noticeably. And I think Nintendo's Amiibos have gotten better quality as they've come out with new ones. Like if you look at the first wave, they all have derpy eyes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But all the newer ones are like far more true to the characters. So it could be that they're not quite as good looking as these pictures. To be, it could be.
No.
Yeah, it's
They're
like
deceiving us.
these could just be concept, but then again, like where I don't know how expensive it is to like put in the NFC cards or readers and everything inside the amiibo, but the cost of leaving out any electronical hardware and just making the plastic figure itself, like they could be using it to make the figures themselves a higher quality as opposed to uh, like using it to add in any extra type of features. So, but I'm interested in seeing people that are going to have their huge collection of amiibo, and then right next to it, they're going to have a huge collection of all of these different PlayStation characters, especially if they come out with like The Last of Us or Uncharted, like Ratchet and Clank. I think that would be really cool.
Where's Ratchet and Clank?
Jack and Daxter. They have Spider-Man coming out later on, but there's already a million Spider-Man figures that you can buy. So.
Yeah.
That's true. But they're not in this lineup.
Yeah.
But you know, the box looks like an amiibo, isn't it? Like the same style and like. I think I saw a picture side by side. Maybe that was like a concept art or something, but.
My worry also is like they only have 7 characters and one of them's a spaceship. So which the spaceship one, what is that? I don't recognize that one.
I don't recognize that one, but if it was an R-Wing though, I would be on top of that.
Yeah.
So sick. I think that'd be amazing.
That would actually, I do want that. I think there almost was one, but they didn't make it. But there's only 7 of these.
Okay, so
and I think when the Amiibo launched, there was a lot more characters to choose from because it was the Smash Bros lineup. It didn't have all the characters in Smash, but it had a lot of them in the first lineup. I can't think of which characters it was missing though.
I'm sending this to you guys on Twitter. This is the only image, and this could be fan art, but this is the only image I was able to find of the different figures in the cases.
It probably was fan art. That's probably what I saw because I was just like, this is eerily close to.
So.
Yeah, I think it is fan art. Who knows?
Who
knows what the boxes look like?
There's nothing that I would buy immediately. Like I would like to have Sackboy and some of the other characters, especially if they come out with some of the games like Ratchet and Clank and stuff in the future. If they come out with almost an amiibo, Totaku. Do you guys know how that's specifically pronounced? Like, it's interesting that they're taking the same naming concept as Nintendo did. Like Amiibo for Nintendo was, I forget what the meaning of it was, but I think they said it was like a Japanese word, and then like they have the me in there too with the 2 eyes, and then Totaku, they're taking a similar naming approach as Nintendo.
Yeah.
So there are the similarities there, not just in the figures themselves, but the naming process. But I'm excited for this, especially if they do end up implementing some sort of functionality for games in the future. Like if these sell really well, then I think they would be like, hey, we should create our own lineup of actual.
Yeah. I really hope that there is some sort of like game functionality reason to get them as well, because with Amiibo I have a pretty I have a ever-growing amiibo collection that I'm pretty proud of. And some of them I don't open because I'm like, no, that's gold and silver Mario. They're staying in the box, right?
Yeah.
And some of them, and quite a lot of them, I've just opened because I also want to use them in the games that they're compatible with.
Something
So
that I
I
could
want.
see them being used with, specifically with Sackboy, if you go over to a friend's house and you don't have time to like download your profile or anything, if you were able to save your custom character with all of its stickers and costumes and
Ooh.
stuff that you use, and just take that figure over to your friend's house, and then you have your character with all of the stickers and everything that you've unlocked in your game, you're able to use that. That would be an interesting use for it. But some of the other stuff, like was it the Bloodborne figure they
Mm-hmm.
had? Like I couldn't think of anything logical that they could use with that, because like it's basically a single player game anyway, so it's not like you'd be able to trade stuff back and forth.
Yeah, unless it's a get item thing like in Breath of the Wild amiibo. But
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know, man.
that could be it.
I hope so, because then at that point it's just another figurine.
Right.
Yeah.
So
But there are some characters that don't have figurines that, obviously I'll get. But for the rest of them, like Spider-Man, how you said there's a bunch of Spider-Man figurines that you
yeah,
could get.
Yeah.
So
I really like the look of Crash Bandicoot in here. I think I would get that, but yeah.
I like that one too. They need a Spyro though. I really want to. If they come out with the Spyro, that's it. I'm getting it. I love Spyro. Absolutely love Spyro. So I'll
since
be totally down.
we've talked about how these are similar to Amiibo and which figures or PlayStation figures we would like to see in this lineup. So if we just went with Amiibo, Chris and Daniel, what's the next Amiibo figure from Nintendo that you'd like to see? To bring in a little bit of Nintendo to this discussion.
Every time I want one, they do actually come out with it. So
They do. Like Detective Pikachu. That's like my favorite.
Are you excited for that movie?
I am so excited. I know that a lot of people are just like, but it's Ryan Reynolds and Pikachu talks. Like, but for me, I think what they're going for is like a Detective Conan. I feel like that's where it's going. Like, I don't know if you guys ever seen that anime. It's like really old, but basically it's about this guy who gets put into this little kid's body. So I'm guessing that somehow this person gets put into a Pikachu body, and then that's how they became Detective Pikachu or whatever. So I'm super excited for it. I'm like,
the problem I think a lot of people have with Pikachu talking is anytime they think Pikachu, they think Ash's Pikachu, and this is just a random Pikachu, like not the one that we all know and love from the Pokemon series. This is a new Pikachu, and in the same way, like there was an old episode of the Pokemon animated show where it shows how Meowth started talking and taught himself and everything. So maybe there's a good explanation for how this Pikachu started talking. But yeah, I think a lot people's hate for it on like, oh, Pikachu shouldn't talk. They're just thinking it Ash's Pikachu, where it's not Ash's Pikachu.
Although with that new movie out,
oh
people
yeah,
got pretty upset.
I know.
There's one particular scene that got people.
Maybe that was them.
Angry, so.
They were just testing.
It didn't help the situation.
It didn't help. No.
With Detective Pikachu. No, but I think this is separate. I truly believe this is separate.
No,
because there's a clip of Detective Pikachu next to a Pikachu, and like it didn't talk, but only Detective Pikachu was talking. So I was like, that's an example.
More than one Pikachu, guys, in the world of Pokemon. So
yeah, and this Pikachu, something interesting is like in the same way that Meowth can talk to Pokemon and talk to humans, it would be interesting to see some of the interactions with this Pikachu that can speak English, so he can actually let us know what these Pokemon are saying. Because before that, it was just like Mewtwo and some of the other psychic Pokemon that could communicate with humans.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what that is. But you said you wanted to see Detective Pikachu amiibo, and then they're coming out with one.
Yeah, I'm so it's bigger. I was like, wow, I
Yeah.
can't wait. I actually want to dress up this one too, but I'll probably like add a couple of things like a magnifying glass or like I don't know, books or whatever. Something along the lines of like Sherlock-ish, type things. So
Mhm.
I'm super excited for it. I love it. I can't really think of
Now,
another amiibo that I'd want,
am I
but
imagining
that's the
this,
one.
or was there a small Detective Pikachu amiibo and then there was a large Detective Pikachu?
No, just the large. Just the large one.
Okay, so it's not
Is this
like
like
the
how
Yoshi.
big is it? Is this like Mega Yarn Yoshi
No, it's
large or?
it's slightly bigger. It's just slightly bigger. I think it's as
Okay.
big as Monster Hunter ones,
Okay, yeah, I
because the
see it.
Monster Hunter ones are pretty big. Um, but it's not like a gigantic one like the Yoshi one.
It
That'd be
looks
too
like
big.
it's a little more than twice the height of the normal Pikachu. And Pikachu's already
Okay.
a small amiibo anyways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's one of
So,
the smaller ones, like Pikachu, Kirby.
yeah.
Those I think are the smallest ones I have at least.
This doesn't look like the skinny Pikachu though. Like you see
Yeah.
a lot of images of like Pikachu back in the original anime and how he's lost weight in the newer.
It's because he's doing more battles.
Yeah.
He's working out.
This
That's
looks
very
like
true.
the chubbier Pikachu that everyone grew to love.
He's just
Ash is
he's just
working
solving
him.
cases. That's pretty much all he's doing.
Yeah.
No exercise. So I'm super excited.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one amiibo that I'd want. What about you,
Yeah.
Daniel? What did you want as an amiibo?
I don't know, man. I just always want more Zelda. I'm a huge Zelda fan. I think, but then like I really wanted like more like they started coming out with the older Link ones, like Ocarina of Time Link, I have 8-bit Link, Majora's Mask, Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword as well. I think I would like a classic one that's not 8-bit, like
Yeah.
and I actually do have
Based
a
on
like
the
a
artwork
yeah.
and
So I
not
mean
the
I
way it
do have
looks in
a
game.
yeah, because if they did them all based on how they look in game, then the Ocarina of Time one would look way, way worse. It would look like polygons, but it doesn't. It's based on like the artwork, or that you could say it's based on Ocarina of Time 3D, but it doesn't say 3D. So, I would like to see more, maybe like a classic Link that's not 8-bit. But I do have an A Link Between Worlds Link figurine that is not an amiibo, but it's that classic Link design that's not
It'd be really cool
pixelated.
actually.
So like that kind of fills that spot for me. What would be really cool?
Yeah. If they did like a Hyrule like landscape on the amiibo. Like that'd be really cool. Like if it was, how like in Melee, like the trophy like room or whatever, and they did like
Oh yeah.
landscapes and stuff. It'd be really cool if you had like the Hyrule Castle and stuff. I think that would be really cool with like the little
Yeah.
trees and like the I don't know, but landscapes. Who knows?
Yeah, my thought originally went to like Banjo Kazooie type amiibo, but hearing what Daniel was saying, the different type of uh, Zelda characters that they haven't done yet, I would like to see the specifically the A Link Between Worlds Link in an amiibo. There's the artwork where like his arm and stuff is like he's posed in a very particular way or specific way, and I would like to see amiibo based off of that artwork. So that's what I want, because I'm actually getting ready to like replay through all of A Link Between the Worlds. So
Oh, it's so good.
yeah.
Are you gonna play through it before we do our Triforce Heroes run?
I same thing. I was going to try to get Triforce Heroes here in a few days. I was looking online. Triforce Heroes was only like on eBay, I guess, because a lot of people aren't playing it because of the multiplayer thing. There's only like $7 or $8. So
Wow.
yeah, I was like,
all right,
less than $10, and it's a Zelda game. Of course, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would go with A Link Between Worlds Link or the Banjo Kazooie. Some of the older third-party stuff's really cool. Even Ukulele looks really cool. It would be like a
I'd love
cute
it
amiibo.
because we got a Shovel Knight set. So
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, more third-party ones or indie ones would be cool. Indie ones are a little smaller budgets, indie games, so I
Yeah.
can see them not necessarily coming, but some other third-party stuff would be really cool.
Gibbs.
I know that I think they were hoping to do Rabid amiibos with Mario and
Oh
Rabbids,
yeah.
but then they ended up.
They just have that
I guess
giant
they got
statue.
rejected, so they just got figurines instead.
Yeah.
I wonder
Gibbs.
why it's rejected then. That's so weird.
I'm just guessing. It might not have been.
Right,
They might have
probably.
just been like, well, we'll just do figurines, but
Some of
I
the
don't know.
people in the chat, Gibbs is saying Rex and Pyra from Xenoblade Chronicles 2.
Yeah.
The champion of Morrowind says Tetra from.
Yes. Give me because we got Toon Zelda. We've
Yeah.
got Twilight Princess Zelda. We got Sheik. Where's Tetra?
Yeah. He says
Oh, that
Impa
is true.
from Ocarina of Time. So,
Wait, what?
Impa.
Impa. Oh, Impa.
Yeah. I was about to say we already have
That's
Impa,
not my
but
favorite
it's
Impa
Sheik.
though.
So
Well, yeah, we.
they
not my
could
favorite
release
Impa.
the two from Skyward Sword, so you have two different versions.
Oh yeah,
Old Impa
old
and
and
young
young Impa.
Yeah.
I
Alright.
also like Hyrule Warriors Impa.
Yeah,
I'm
she's
all about
cool.
that.
I like her design.
Yeah, they
Pretty
have
and
the
amazing.
Kicks ass.
they have the definitive edition of Impa from. Or not. I'm getting confused. Sorry. They have the
Okay.
definitive edition of Hyrule Warriors that was just announced for the Nintendo Switch. They're adding in some of the Breath of the Wild costumes and weapons and stuff. So it would be really cool if they released a Hyrule Warriors line of amiibo. So you would have Link with the blue scarf. You would have all of the different versions of just the different characters like Darunia, Zora, Tingle. Everybody wants a Tingle amiibo. I know they do.
Actually, yeah, I do want it.
Just so you can stomp on it.
Or something. Throw it out the window.
Yeah. But what about you? Do you think it would be interesting seeing the line of Hyrule Warriors amiibo? And have you already created some of them? I'm sure you
I
have.
have not, but I did cosplay Impa Hyrule Warriors. So
Nice.
that's why I love that design. I love that design. I think it's gorgeous. It's so pretty. I would definitely like to have an amiibo of her, if anything.
Yeah.
But even just like maybe some of the items that Link uses, like the grappling hook or whatever. Because when I remember playing Melee or like seeing the whole table full of trophies, they did items too, and I think it'd look really cool if you had like the Hyrulean shield and the Master Sword, or
Yeah.
even Epona.
Even if they did that with
Force.
Mario games, like it would be cool to have like a bomb amiibo or something.
Like it'd be really cool to see that.
Yeah, and then the if they had the Zelda items, it would just be the same design but without a smiley face or without the eyes. So it's like they're just reusing the same thing. But I guess that brings us to the very end of this. If you have a little bit more time, we can move on to the mailbag, and then we'll be all finished. So
all right, let's do
hope
it.
we haven't taken up too much of your time.
No, it's okay.
All right.
How deep are we in? Oh yeah, an hour and a half. We're making good time. We've done worse.
Pretty good.
Yeah. All right.
This is fun. No worries. Let's keep going.
All right.
We've gone well over 3 hours before, so whoops.
Yes. We have. All right. So we have the Patreon questions, which we'll get to first. We only have one from the Patreon user this week, and then the rest are a mix from YouTube and Discord. We won't get through all of them, but we can look through them and decide which ones we'll rotate. Like I'll pick one, you'll pick one, Daniel will pick one, and then we'll maybe do 5 questions and then we'll be out. So, are you ready to start the questions?
Yes. Let's start with the one Patreon question.
I was going to do the... Oh yeah, there is just one Patreon question, and it's from someone called... Alright, so I'll do a new intro for this. Because each of the way the podcast works, each of the news topics and the interview and the mailbag all get uploaded as separate videos throughout the week. So it's not just one huge video. But for the people that are interested in just one huge video, they can just go back and watch the full unedited podcast that we're live streaming. So anyways, what's up everybody? I'm Jesse, or Game Over Jesse, and here with me is a very special guest for the first time, GandaKris. I didn't want to Mispronounced it. All right.
No, you got it. Perfect.
Okay, awesome. So, for those who may not know who you already explained in some of the previous segments, but you are, I would say, most known for your custom amiibo work.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep,
right.
yep. I paint them, put clay and mold them and all that stuff. So
All right. And as always, we also have Daniel here. Go ahead and say hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel. I make
Alright.
that joke every time.
He does.
It doesn't get old.
Alright. So, for the people that may be interested in finding you on the Twitter or the YouTubes, where would they go, Chris?
So I am on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Instagram and Twitter are the same, so it's Miss GandaKris. And then on what is it, YouTube? It's just GandaKris. Yes.
And today we will be answering questions sent in from fans and viewers like yourself. These questions come from YouTube, where you can comment on this video to leave your questions for the next mailbag. But sometimes we get too many questions, so if you have something that for some reason you want desperately answered by us, and you don't want us to skip over, head over to patreon.com/GameOverJesse to have your question take priority, just like the one did, where he says, Game Over Jesse, King Bergerson, if you could create your own official Zelda game the way you wanted, who would it be about, and what kind of art style would you choose? So, starting with you, Chris, on this one, if you could have your own Zelda game and base it off of any character, who would it be? I think there's a lot of people that would joke and say Tingle, but Tingle has already
his own games.
Yes, Tingle has his own line of games that launched in Japan. So
if I had to, of course, I would choose Impa, like her origin story and
okay.
everything. That'd be awesome.
Is
And then
there
I'd
a
have like
particular Impa? Like Skyward
Skyward
Sword?
Sword, Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
I'll just go for Hyrule Warriors because I cosplayed.
Okay.
I cosplayed her, and I like the design, and like I would love to see like how that came to fruition. You know, like even her like triangle right here on the side and everything. Just I don't know, just everything. And then I would like to have it like a Tim Burton feel,
Oh,
like
nice.
like a really grungy looking thing. So that's my game. Sounds like a zombie.
And if you could choose the art style, would you keep the art style looking like Hyrule Warriors, or would you want it to look more realistic, like Twilight Princess, a cartoon like Wind Waker, a mix of both, like Skyward Sword, or like an anime?
I would love to have it in 4K.
In 4K. Okay.
4K VR.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go. That would be amazing. Yes.
And what about you, Daniel? What character would you base the game off of?
There's like two ideas that have both been brought up on this podcast before. That one of them we mentioned a couple weeks ago was the idea of an RPG that follows the champions as a group.
Oh yeah.
Because you've got this, you've basically got like all your RPG classes in these characters. You got your healer in Mifa, Rivali's your archer, Daruk's your tank, your heavy hitter. You've got Urbosa as like a fighter type character. So I think like that would be a really cool sort of RPG game. But my other idea, which I've been hanging on to for a long time, which I'd love to see, doesn't focus on Link. It's about Zelda's 7-year gap in Ocarina of Time. How she became Sheik, like learning how to be this ninja character and what she's doing during this time. I think you'd have a really cool like stealth game about that.
You also have the potential death of Impa in that game to be explored, because she disappeared. Like she never comes back during the adult segment. So maybe she died while they were hiding away, or who knows. So
I think
there could be a lot of stuff.
My theory is that she went to go see what was going on in the Shadow Temple, as it's sort of mentioned that she went there, and got killed by Bongo Bongo. But that's my thought.
Yeah.
All the sages are dead. They're all dead.
Yeah.
But they might not be, actually. It's never said.
But that is one of the theories.
That's always how I interpreted it, is that they all got killed, and then who knows. But maybe not, because in Wind Waker, no, we're getting off topic. In Wind Waker, they died right? Like the old sages, and you had to bring in new sages who weren't dead. So maybe dying wouldn't really be the. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, that would be having like a Sheik game that's like a stealth-based game. Would be really cool. I don't know.
All right, I would pick, and I think this could be like just the go-to answer for almost everyone, but I would really like to explore more of the Happy Mask salesman we see in Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. It could be a potentially like a different Happy Mask salesman, but the character does appear in either Oracle of Seasons or Oracle of Ages. There's a side quest where like he's starving inside of his little shop, and you have to bring him a giant slab of meat or something. So like he's in different games, similar to Tingle and Beetle, but it's never said if it is the same one because there's a lot of theories on the Happy Mask salesman being sort of a deity, similar to like the Great Deku Tree and everyone else, because he teaches Link like the different songs to like turn or to heal people, turn them into masks and stuff. He's not affected by the time travel and everything else. And then obviously he's aware of Majora's Mask and its power. He was the one that originally found it, so I think there's a lot of interesting stuff there. But at the same time, it would be interesting to follow Beetle on one of his adventures in Breath of the Wild. We kind of see him backpacking all over the game. Skyward Sword, he lives off by himself on his own island, just flies around Skyloft. Wind Waker, and maybe Phantom Hourglass. I can't remember if he's in Spirit Tracks, but Phantom Hourglass and Wind Waker, he's
Spirit Tracks. Just like this hot air balloon that floats around.
So like if you think of another character that's always on an adventure, I would think it would be Beetle, and like he sells you at different times. He has like arrows, bombs, different weapons. So like he has, aside from the sword, he has the full arsenal that Link would. So like you could even like put him in a situation where he has to go into a dungeon to find like rare items to sell or something, and then like he has the bombs, everything Link would have to solve the puzzle. So I think it would be very similar to just having Link, but it would be able to explore like maybe a more humorous or comical story.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts.
Here's another one. I'm just full of ideas, Jesse. In Twilight Princess, there is the group of like freedom fighter characters.
Oh yeah.
Ashia, and there's Russell, and
one of them has a
Oru,
bazooka.
And the guy with the book, whose name escapes me at the moment. And you know, it would be cool. Like they don't really do much in the game. They just kind of showed up in a place. You go talk to them. They're like, "Hey, Link, there's a dungeon up here. Well, have fun, buddy." and then they take a hike. So until the very end of the game, they show up with the bazooka and a bird, and they
kind of broke the game for me. Like just one of them just happens to have like a rocket launcher.
It's like, dude, why haven't you been doing more all this time? Yeah, exactly. You had this all this time and you've done nothing.
Like, why didn't you just shoot Zant when he first came in?
Yeah, you gotta wonder. Yeah, but I would like to see what they do other than, scope out where a dungeon might be, and then tell Link to go do the dungeon, and like back when we were doing the game. When I was playing the game the first time, I thought it would be really cool to have them as like companions during the dungeon. Sort of like there's one dungeon in Phantom Hourglass where you've got half the dungeon you do as Link and the other half you do as the other character who's Gongoron, I think it's called.
And then Wind Waker has
you've got the
Mako,
Makar, and Medley. Yeah.
Who was I thinking of as Mako?
Mako? There's a great Mako tree. Oh. It's not the Deku tree.
Maybe I confused.
One of the Oracle games.
Yeah, maybe I just confused the name of the little Deku that helps you out.
I don't know.
Or not the Deku, the Korok. Like you have to hold on to him.
Korok is Makar. But yeah, so you've got those companion characters in Wind Waker, so it would be cool to have these guys like come crawl the dungeon with you, you know? Um, because then it would seem like they actually do stuff. Because they're supposed to be this group that in Twilight Princess's Hyrule, that they're like this rebel group of freedom fighters that are like doing good for the world, and they have this reputation that they don't live up to, in my opinion. So I'd like to see them do something. So make a game about it. That's all I got. I
Just
feel
do
like you guys are
something.
like waiting for me to like.
I think
do
he's looking up
something.
the next question, maybe.
Yeah, I was just like reading through. I didn't realize that it doesn't look like we have that many questions for this mailbag. Maybe I didn't put them all in. Chris, if you can pick the next question that you would want to answer, and then
Where is the next question? Is it on YouTube?
oh no,
It's
it's
on our
the Google
Google
Docs.
Oh. Whoa. Okay,
Yeah.
well, I'll choose the next one.
all right. Well, while you
I
get to
still
that,
think-
you pick one, Daniel.
Okay. I wasn't looking, so. Uh-oh. We're not prepared, Jesse. I wasn't ready to go next.
I know.
Okay. Okay, this one is actually a good question, and I feel like it's something I've kind of argued with people about IRL, as it were. Ilya Rose asks, I apologize if you've been asked this before. I sometimes forget which questions I've asked which Zelda YouTubers. Do y'all think that someone who plays only Zelda games and maybe a few random ones like Mario Kart or Animal Crossing and Mario Party perhaps doesn't follow other game series can't be called a gamer? Also, what games would you recommend to someone who is only accustomed to Zelda and wants to try others? So yeah, if you play video games and you like doing that, you're a gamer, in my opinion. Like, yeah, that's it. You like Zelda and a few other games. You play those games. You're like, there's different levels of it. Like maybe whatnot, but like I consider myself a gamer.
So their question was, if you don't play a lot of games, just Zelda and a couple of others, are you still technically a gamer?
Are you a gamer? And I say, yeah, sure. I mean, you're not maybe like there's different markets of gamers though, right? That's the thing, is you've got your dude bros and you've got people who are just like really into some genres. Some people only play strategy games. Some people only play MMOs. But we're all gamers. That's it's just hard to really define that term. It seems really elitist to say, well, you only play Zelda, so you're not a gamer.
Yeah.
So yeah, Ilya, I think you're a gamer. Maybe not the same type of gamer as someone else you may talk to, but that doesn't make you less than they are. I had a friend who he was one of the only people at my work, at my old day job, that was also a gamer. So we talk about video games a lot, and he in passing referred to me as a casual, and I was like, "Whoa, excuse me," like, whoa, I got a little offended. And what it came down to is that because the types of games he plays, he felt like he was a hardcore gamer, and he didn't feel like the types of games I played made me a gamer like it made him. So in his mind, I was a casual. And I don't think that the games I play make me any less of a gamer than he does. I'm very comfortable calling myself a gamer. And I don't think you should let anyone else define for you what you should call yourself. So there's my bit.
Yeah, there was like the interesting thing is, like, if you go by that, which I'll play a video game for like a total of maybe 3 hours a week. I don't really play video games that long unless it's like a new game. Like when Breath of the Wild first came out, obviously I was playing that as much as I could, but after I beat the game and got through some of the DLC, it just then goes back to, like, I always had this issue, like, after I turned like 18 or 19, that whenever I was just playing a video game, I always felt like uh, this may not be the best way to put it, but like I'm wasting my time. I could be doing something more productive, which is really great with the YouTube channel. That like if I play a game now, then usually it's a game that I was sent to review or do a video on or something. So then I can be like, I'm playing the game, but I'm also being productive because it's my job. So I can kind of get around that now. Usually, like before my YouTube channel, it would have to be like a co-op game or something where like I'm with my girlfriend or my friend or whoever's there with me playing the game as well. Like The Last of Us, which isn't necessarily a two-player game, but it's a great game to play with someone. So playing through that game, I didn't feel like I was just playing a game and wasting my time. So that's my experience with that. And then like someone I guess from that could be like, well, you only play Zelda or you only play a game like maybe an hour a day. You're not a real gamer. And then it's like, I don't even know if I would take offense to that if someone's like, oh, you're not a real gamer. And it's like, is that a bad thing? Is it good?
Yeah.
I don't know. But what about you, Chris? How often are you playing games? And do you think that would qualify someone to not be a real gamer if they're only playing a few different games?
You know what? I'm actually in the same position as you are, where it's like I'll get games to review and play, and so it gives me, motivation to, man, I can't wait to sit down and play this game. But I truly don't think that there is like a checklist of games that you need to play in order to be a gamer. Um, I don't know if that person's looking for a title or achievement trophy, but there's no such thing, I believe, as like a true gamer. If you pick up even a mobile game, that's still a game. You're still dedicating your time to a software that is fun and obviously to take skill, so again, I don't think there's any titles to be won or anything like that. If you play a video game, you play a video game. I mean, there's some people that don't even play video games. So, you know, but yeah, that's what I believe in. If you're looking for that title, you can give it to yourself, but
Yeah.
don't expect anyone else to feel
Gibbs,
bad or worse or whatever.
Gibbs, he's one of the moderators in the Discord group. He made a little joke. I don't know if you guys have the live stream up, but he in the
I've been pulling up and down.
yeah, in the comments he said there are the commoners, and then there are the people who collect 1,800 Korok seeds. Talking about Breath of the Wild, like there's 900 Korok seeds, and then there's 900 Korok seeds on Master Mode. So he's like,
just ain't got time for that, man.
Yeah, it depends on how much free time you have. That's so much dedication. That's so much dedication. And when you get older, sadly, like your time dwindles.
Yeah,
it totally does. Because I used to play probably I would say consistently 4 hours a day.
Yeah.
Pretty consistently. Sometimes more, sometimes less. And it's even now, sometimes I will play 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
But those days are very few and far between. I'll maybe get in an hour or two here and there. There are days I go the whole day and I'm like, I didn't play any video games today. What a weird world I live in. But I ain't 17 anymore. I'm well into my 20s now, and I just don't have the time that I used to. I've got a day job that keeps me pretty busy, and I've got a lot of video editing to do, which I take a lot of enjoyment from doing. I really love getting into that work.
Yeah.
Sometimes it does line up where I'm like, I need footage for this. Go crack out Breath of the Wild, and it records for half an hour, and I'm kind of doing both. But yeah, but I don't think that makes me not a gamer, because that's how I identify myself, and that's how I feel about myself. And you don't have to call yourself that if you don't want to, but you shouldn't let someone else define you by their standards. That would be a really crappy world to live in if that were the case.
Yeah. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
No. You go on ahead.
I didn't mean
I was gonna
to
get
interrupt. I was just gonna say another variation of this is if you were just talking about Zelda and someone's like, they've only played Ocarina of Time, or they've only played Ocarina of Time and Breath of the Wild, and someone's like, oh, you're not a real Zelda fan. You haven't played
Don't get me started on
all
the
of these
real
games.
fans.
Yeah, it's like
You're not a true fan unless you've done this.
yeah.
Uh,
Before we get to the next question, there was someone who left a $2 tip for the podcast.
oh,
The Player Way podcast tipped
thank you.
and said,
Wow.
"Great live stream, guys. Keep up the great work." So
Wow.
thank you.
That is amazing. Thank you, man.
Yes,
It's like
apparently
we're all getting so excited about $2, but that is so awesome.
I don't know when
That
this
makes me
took
so happy.
place. It looks like it had to be at least 20 minutes ago, so maybe when we were talking about VR or something. So
Oops.
thank you for
What
that.
are the other comments around it? I might give it context to one move. Well, I hope he's still watching.
If you still have the Google Doc pulled up, Chris, there was a question specifically for you that someone asked. Yes.
All I see is the Star Wars and Star Trek one. Is that?
That's a good one. We could do that.
No, it's okay. So if you look at RPG is the one that asked it. It's the second question.
Oh, I see it. Okay.
Right.
Ooh, okay. What is Chris's favorite game series? Keeping in mind we all love Zelda, and if she doesn't say Zelda, we won't like her anymore.
Oh.
Ooh. Well.
Speaking of elitist.
All right. Game series. Well, one that definitely clicked immediately was Wind Waker because I would play it with my sisters and we would do like ridiculous things and really not follow the storyline. But I would take a lot of pictures with a pictograph and like of course make them into figurines and stuff. And that's how I actually got kind of into wanting to make figurines too, is because when I took pictures of the pictograph and then had the guy make the figurines, like I was really interested. I was just like, this looks beautiful. Like I would love to have a figurine like this displayed in my own room. So I love the Zelda series. I love Pokemon for sure. So if I had to choose Zelda and Pokemon, like my top two.
Awesome. What about you? We'll come back to that in just a second because someone else asked a question that kind of ties in with that. But what's your favorite video game series?
What's obviously Zelda. I'm a huge Zelda fan. Next to Zelda, Metroid and Mario in no particular order, kind of fluxes between the two. I love me some Metroid. The thing that like I love about it is it's so atmospheric. Like the ambience is incredible in Metroid games. Like if you get some real good headphones.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but while I have this thought, did you watch the Boss Key videos? Where the guy dissected all of the different Zelda dungeons?
No, I'd love to watch that though. Like level analysis and stuff.
Yeah, he goes through every single one of the Zelda games. It's been going on for a few months now, and it was supposed to be leading up to his review on Breath of the Wild, as well as I guess he's a video game designer, and he had a series where he talks about how the different thought processes and development tools, ideas, concepts that go into creating different levels in different games. And he did Mario and a bunch of other games, and he got to Zelda. But because Zelda, the way that the dungeons are designed are specific to each game almost, like the dungeons in Twilight Princess are a lot different than the dungeons from A Link to the Past. And then obviously the Divine Beasts in Breath of the Wild are a lot different than Ocarina of Time. So he went through every single Zelda game to do the video or whatever, and the new series, which was called Boss Key, began as just the different Zelda stuff. But at the end of it, he finally did Breath of the Wild, which came out a couple of days ago. But at the end of that video, he said Boss Key wasn't over, that he would be diving into other games as well. And one of the games that he mentioned was Metroid. So he's going to be looking through all of the different Metroid games, talking about the different concepts, design choices, and everything from a developer's point of view in Metroid. So
this sounds like a series I need to start watching.
When you mentioned Metroid, it popped it in my head. So didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize, but I thought it would be something that you'd be interested in.
I know I'm all about that.
Do you know of this series, Chris?
No, not really.
Okay.
But I'm interested now.
Yeah.
Sold it to me.
So finish what you were saying,
Oh yeah.
Daniel.
So like I could go on and on about why I love Zelda. You guys probably there's been weeks of that on this podcast. So, but yeah, Metroid is like super. Like Mario is fun,
Oh,
and it's like a
it's
great
Mark
level
Brown
design. That's
is the
okay.
guy. He I think he does stuff for like Did You Know Gaming and Unseen 64s and stuff like that. But he also has his own YouTube channel. Finish what you were saying.
Right on.
Sorry.
Yeah, Mario's about like having fun almost, and it's like a fun, bubbly adventure, and I find Mario's level design very fun and interesting. Whereas Metroid, it's like all raw atmosphere, and it's very emotional and isolating, and it's like a really different experience when you go into Metroid. And it's a game that makes you feel alone, but also like strong. Um, and there's like a very great sense of progression in Metroid games from where you start. I've talked Super Metroid to death in a 24-minute long video that I highly recommend watching because I really lay it all out in that video. I've talked a lot about Samus Returns and how it's a awesome remake of an almost unplayable game. Actually, it's funny because I watched a video. I'm getting off topic again, Jesse. I don't
No,
even
it's
care.
fine.
There's a video I watched that was comparing the 3 now versions of Metroid 2, the original Game Boy release, the fan remade AM2R, and Metroid Samus Returns for 3DS. And it talks about how the design philosophies differ between the 3 games, whereas the first one was basically just made to be a Metroid sequel. AM2R was made to bring Metroid 2 to the same standards as Zero Mission, and AM2R Metroid Samus Returns throws all that out the window for a different philosophy, and it mentions bringing that both the remakes sort of missed the mark on what was good about Metroid 2, in that it loses its sense of atmosphere and isolation because of even technical limitations that aren't there anymore. And I just like never disagreed with a video more in my life. It was like a really good, well thought out video. And it was like I was like listening to it, I was like, yeah, everything he's saying makes sense, but I don't agree. I really loved Samus Returns. Like it went for a different approach in which you feel going into it like you're this strong character that is like on this mission to be a death machine, and you feel tough going through it, but there is that sense of like you're going into caves and you're alone, and then you're in these big open areas and there's like everything is out to kill you, and it refers to the game as sort of like being Neanderthalic in its brutality. But I think that they missed the point that that's a turning point for Samus's character development in the overarching series, because they're like, well, in the original game you're alone and you're isolated and you're not just out to kill everything, even though that's actually the story behind the game, is that you are there to kill everything. And then he goes on saying that it's brutish the way they remade it because it's just like over the top and violent, and I have to reiterate, the story is you're there to kill everything. And in both, like in the remake and the original, like the game ends with you finding this baby and basically rescuing it and sort of turning your back on all of this death and destruction that you left in your wake, to sort of forge a new beginning using the baby Metroid, which ends up kicking Super Metroid's events into a go. And I would say that like he sort of missed what was great about Samus Returns in his video about why Samus Returns missed what was so good about the first Metroid 2. So the irony was pretty thick there, but I love, my main point was that I love me some Metroid. Thank you for listening to my lecture.
No, it's fine.
I just feel like I'm going on and you guys get so quiet
He
once I'm in this
asked
No, it's
he
okay.
asked what our favorite video game series is. I think it's obvious from this that it would be Metroid, if not Zelda.
It's Zelda, but the thing is that like I don't want to talk about Zelda that much, or no, not that I don't want to, but I've talked about Zelda so much in the past and why it's so special to me, and I was like, I should talk about a different one this time. So yeah.
All right. Well, mine, I'll make this a little bit simpler. Mine is Zelda. So next question.
Dun, dun, dun.
So I did a question, Daniel did a question, and then Chris did a question. So it's back to me. This question may tie into what Chris was saying earlier because she said one of hers was Pokemon. So Link in the chat just a few minutes ago apparently is done adventuring and wants to enjoy the podcast. So he asks, what's on your guys' Switch wish list out of curiosity? So right now we have Breath of the Wild. My wish list would be whatever the 2D Zelda team is working on. I would like a 2D Zelda game without the limitations that the 3DS had. So, like, A Link Between Worlds was built with the 3DS in mind. You had to limit yourself to the power that the 3DS had, which wasn't very limiting for a 2D Zelda game. But if you take that same approach to the Nintendo Switch, if the Nintendo Switch can give you an experience as big and as wonderful as Breath of the Wild, which is this huge open world 3D game, what all could be accomplished in a 2D game? So I would love to see some of the complex puzzle designs and new mechanics they can come up with. They used the ability of the 3DS to let you merge into walls and 2D figure on the wall that worked into puzzles and stuff. So what kind of creative ideas could they come up with on the Nintendo Switch, since they would not be working with any sort of limitations? Like whatever they could think of, they would technically be able to do. So I would like to see what they could do with that. And then obviously, I would really like to see whatever the next Pokemon game is, which they announced would be coming to the Nintendo Switch, which I think might tie into what Chris is going to say. So I'll let you take it from here, Chris.
I'm so eager, to say it. The one game that I've always wanted, and I'm pretty sure they can probably integrate this with Nintendo Labo, is Pokemon Snap. Like, if you can make the camera and build it and turn it and everything. Like, I've always wanted Pokemon Snap, for the longest time. And so if they have that, if they make that, my life is done. I'm gonna be spending hours on that for sure.
So you want Pokemon Snap more than
for the
the traditional Pokemon game?
Well, it'd be really cool if it was integrated with all the Pokemon that they have now, with Pokemon Sun and Moon and even the new Pokemon. I would love to just take pictures of Pokemon.
Okay, so if I don't know who's in charge of Game Freak, so I'm just gonna say if Miyamoto knocked on your door and was like, "Hey Chris, we're working on 2 different Pokemon games, but we can only launch one this year, and then we'll launch the next one in 2019. So do we release Pokemon whatever, or do we release Pokemon Snap 2?
Pokemon Snap?
Also,
All right.
get in the house. What are you doing knocking on my door?
I know. Get to work.
All right, so you would want at this moment to play Pokemon Snap 2 more than Pokemon. All right.
I used to say that the Wii U, they really missed an opportunity to do a Pokemon Snap game on the Wii U with the gamepad as your camera.
Yeah,
so
because
you have the main game on the TV screen, and then you have your camera as the gamepad, and then it could have been great. But they can still do something with the gyroscope controls, I think, especially for the camera, like that. Yeah, they could make something cool.
Yeah.
They could do 3DS for that too, but
then you can print out the stickers and put it on the Nintendo Labo. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, that would be cool. Really cool. Especially now, what is it? They have all of the integrations with the smartphone games. What's the Nintendo smartphone game that they had? The first one. That was just your Mii's.
Oh, Mito, or no, it was
Mitomo.
Mitomo or Mitomo, whatever it was called. If they had something with Mitomo, or if they just released a separate Pokemon Snap app to where, you could I guess you could use a Pikachu amiibo for this as well, just to save the pictures, but a way to send some of the pictures that you would take in Pokemon Snap to your cell phone or to save it on your amiibo, and then you go to a GameStop or somewhere and tap your amiibo on the kiosk they have, and it will print out the pictures that you take. I think
Oh
something like that
no.
would be really cool, similar to
Revive Blockbuster.
yeah, the way that they used to have Pokemon Snap, where you could take your memory pack or whatever and just like put it in and print out all of your pictures. Except this time, your pictures are going to be in HD, not like a blurry
It's not the
whatever
Game Boy
Pokemon
camera.
Snap was.
Yeah.
So it would be really. There's a lot of stuff they could do with it outside of just making Pokemon Snap 2. Um, like I imagine it would be really cool if they did have it to where like on the Wii U, if you're just moving your camera around and you move your camera and then like right beside you without you realizing it was just like Celebi or something just like flying alongside you. But you never noticed it because you're like looking up at the mountains or in the lake trying to find like a Dratini or whatever. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think it'd be really cool, but I still am going to say I would rather have the traditional Pokemon game. I think I would like that, and then it would be if they could do it because they have so many different mini games in Pokemon. Um, if they had like the a Pokemon Snap mini game inside of it, so I would really like that. What about you,
Yeah.
Daniel? Well, what's your wish list?
Give me Yoshi! I want Yoshi! There was like a short trailer for a Yoshi game, and I want to know what that was. I want more details. It's not
Was
yarn
that the
anymore.
E3?
Yeah, it's no longer yarn. Yoshi is now craft material. But you know, I really love Yoshi.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to see what that's gonna be. I want to play that game because Yoshi games have like
Yeah, it's just called
really
Yoshi.
good level design. Like so basically they just don't have a full title yet. Because I think Kirby it was just called Kirby and now it's Kirby Star Allies. Oh, I really want that game too. And if they make a Donkey Kong Country game, that would be
this
cool with
game
me as well.
looks really good.
Which Kirby?
No, I'm looking at the Yoshi. It looks like it has the same lighting as like in Wind Waker HD and Super Mario 3D World. It looked like the main characters had like a glow, like a sort of light aura around them, where the light would hit them and the edges would be like white. Yoshi looks like he has that same lighting, and I really like it. So Nintendo should keep using it. That was one of the things that I didn't like from the change from Super Mario 3D World to Odyssey, because I thought the way that like the edges lit up in 3D World looked better than like just the normal look in Odyssey. That's just my opinion. The game looks really good. It looks
I want to
it looks really really good. Like I'm just looking at screenshots over here. Do you have any thoughts on Yoshi? Have you seen the trailer for the game?
I have not
No?
actually.
How do you feel about Yoshi as a character?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yoshi is my babe.
He's cute. Actually, I prefer Yoshi over Mario.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah.
So like
Yoshi was fun. He was
Yoshi,
like
Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Is that what you're?
it's so good. Also, what's great about Yoshi is Mario he can run, he can jump and stomp on all his problems. Yoshi eats all his problems, and I can really relate to that.
Like if there was a game with just like him and Kirby, like
Yoshi and Kirby together.
Yeah, just like who could eat the most.
Oh my goodness, that's I don't know.
I think Kirby would win though.
No, Kirby eats like one thing, and then he's like, "This is my new thing. This is my new power." Yoshi eats and eats and eats and eats and eats.
Turns them into eggs.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I think I'm gonna just go out here and say, I think Yoshi could eat more than Kirby. Fight me.
Isn't there a channel where it's like they pitted characters against each other?
Oh yeah, there's a really cool one with like Link and Cloud from Final Fantasy VII.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was really cool too. Like the graphics and everything were actually really cool. They should do that. Kirby and Yoshi.
But just who can eat more?
Alright.
It's because Yoshi, as soon as he eats too, it's in, it's out. Egg.
It's true.
Right away. So he'll never lose his appetite.
So do you want to take our next question, Daniel?
I'm gonna do the Star
All
Wars one.
Okay. Ashley's.
Yes, our
Yes.
good friend Ashley, who's also one of our Discord mods, she
Yes.
asks if you had the choice to watch only all of Star Wars or Star Trek your whole life, which would you pick and why?
Yeah, I think she asked this specifically because I asked on Discord, I tagged everyone and was like, hey, send us your questions for the mailbag. It doesn't have to be Nintendo. Or I said it didn't have to be Zelda. So she took it like a step further and was like,
This is really not Zelda or
yeah,
Nintendo, but I
which is
love it.
which is great. I love the variety because like
Mhm.
with the Zelda, like there's been so many times that we've been asked like, what do you want for the next Zelda game? And it's like, well, there's
So many.
50 videos already about that on the channel.
Please, we answered that.
Yeah.
I choose Star Wars.
Star Wars.
I love Star Trek as well. I do enjoy it, but I don't love it the way I love Star Wars. And I think because Star Trek is a very utopic sci-fi, and there's a disconnect to me with utopic things because the world is not very utopic IRL. At Star Wars, there is no Earth or utopic society. Everything's kind of in flux, and there's a very big fantasy element to
Yeah.
Star Wars that I really love.
So there's two different sides to this question. She could just be talking about the main Star Trek series and then the main Star Wars movies, or even if it's just the Star Trek movies and then the Star Wars movies. But outside of just the movies, Star Wars has like several different animated series. They have like a lot of books and stuff that tie into the movies, comics. They have the spin-off movies now. So I would say Star Wars because since Disney took over, there's the new animated series that I haven't watched, but a lot of people said it's really, really good. There are some of the old Star Wars animated series that uh, had mixed reactions. So I would say Star Wars just because I like the new Star Trek movies, but I'm not that big of a fan of like the older TV series. I never really went back to watch them, so there really isn't
my parents
much of an
are
interest
like
there.
huge Star Trek fans, so I might be letting them down with this. So I grew up with a lot of Star Trek, but so I do like it, but no, it's Star Wars. Just like I get giddy about Star Wars, almost as much as Zelda. Not quite that much though.
Almost there. I like Star Wars too. If I
Star
had to
Wars, awesome.
choose one,
Yes.
for the
One
same reason.
of us.
Because I've heard the comics are like amazing. Like my friend is diehard Star Wars fan, and he's just like, there's a lot more to the stories that people don't know. So the comics and the shorts and all that stuff, they're like really, really good. So
awesome. All right. Do you want to pick the next question, Chris?
Let's see.
Or actually, while you look, I'll do this one because I thought it was just kind of a funny question. So you look for them, and then there's this long question about Zelda being emo that wasn't necessarily. It starts out as a question, but then like it just gets funny. But
oh no.
It's John I don't know from YouTube asks or says, there's some emo people making Zelda games lately. Ever since Twilight, like it's okay for it to be gothic since it's dark and a medieval game, but emo dot dot dot. Not why. Don't know what that means. Naughty.
No,
Naughty?
thank you.
Oh,
guess.
yeah, I guess no thank you.
No.
But emo, no thank you. Like the game should be dark and tragic, not light and moody. Like you don't have to kill people to make it dark. Just make it spooky as crap. I want that feeling of when I first come out of the Temple of Time as an adult and saw the destruction, the feeling of Icona Village, the harshness of the desert, or the ocean from Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time.
Can I point out something?
Yeah.
He says you don't need to kill people to make it dark, and then he lists like the areas that are where a lot of people died in those games. like Icona Village is like literally like the roaming with ghosts and zombies, and so I'm not.
He
We're
goes.
gonna lose a fan in this one, I think.
He goes on to list a bunch of different stuff, but basically his question or his statement is, "What's up with Zelda being so emo lately?" And then he talks about like Majora's Mask's dark, gritty aura around it. Everyone's kind of sad and depressed. Twilight Princess has the same darkish aura around it. I guess Breath of the Wild, he mentions that everything seems so lonely. Like you go to a village or a town and it's all destroyed except for like one or two. Um, so like, but yeah, Chris, why is emo people making Zelda? He wants to know.
Because life is really hard.
Yeah, like
Because
okay.
life does not teach kids. I'm so sorry, but when you get older, life is a lot harder.
Yeah.
I think that what it's John fails to see is that it's the same people making Zelda. Like
Yeah, like
pretty
as
much
Wind Waker
Onuma,
was really
yeah, like
happy.
Wind Waker was the
Skyward
same
Sword was
team
really happy.
as Twilight Princess, and those two games are not like the same in tone at all, right?
Yeah, actually, like Wind Waker HD was made like right alongside the beginning of Breath of the Wild. So
Yeah. So I mean, the thing is like the different games go for different things, different feels. I wouldn't call any of the Zelda games emo. I really wouldn't call any of them that. There are sad points, but there are also points of levity and happiness. Breath of the Wild can be lonely. It can also not be lonely. So
yeah,
Breath of the
you
Wild
can just
is
hang out
very
in
much,
like
yeah,
Kakariko Village the whole time.
it is even the points I think where you're alone in the game. I never felt lonely. One, because I had a wolf with me. No, not all the time. But also the thing is like I think it's what you make of it and it's what you're reading into the game. I have to really ask like if you're lonely.
Yeah,
If that's what you're getting out of Breath, like for me, Breath of the Wild, it was this big adventure. There's open space, there's lots of places to explore, things to see, sightseeing coming out the wazoo. I wanted to climb every mountain, overturn every stone, and I was
there
so
is
busy doing all
the
that. I
guy
wasn't
on the
like,
bridge that
I'm
like
so
tries to get
alone.
you to stop from killing yourself. He
Yeah,
thinks
that
you're
was
gonna
kind
like
of
jump
a
off the
laugh.
bridge.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's what you make of it, man. It's Majora's Mask was I don't feel like you're using it correctly in your defense of
the way you
other
could look at
games.
Majora's Mask is there is like a lot of sadness going on in the game, but
Yeah. There's also a wedding though.
yeah, like
There's
all of the side
festival.
quests are in all of the side quests you are trying to help someone with their problem. So like it's you could look at it as like, oh, it's a game where everyone's being emo, where you could look at it as it's a game where you try to make everyone happy again. So like that's what you're trying to do the whole time is cheer everyone up, solve their issues, solve their problems. Like I didn't think it was that serious of a question. I just like the thought of condensing all of what he was saying to why is Zelda emo. So
yeah, my answer is it's not.
yeah,
But
I don't think it
Quick
is.
said life is hard, guys.
Yeah. So were you able to find your question, Chris?
Yes. So
Alright.
I think what they're trying to say, and this is from Person Man, is that really like his dash?
Person Man. I love it.
I was like, I think, and it says, what will happen with Zelda in the recent game? Like, what does it take to become the royal line?
Okay.
What?
So did you play and complete Breath of the Wild, Chris?
No, I haven't. I heard bits and parts. I know, because you know,
You haven't played it or you
Alright.
haven't completed it?
I haven't beaten it.
Okay.
We need
I
to
barely like honestly even really did too much, to be honest, because
Was
then
it
Mario
too
Odyssey
lonely?
came out and I was like, huh?
Was it too lonely?
It was too
It
lonely.
was too emo.
see
Oh, sorry.
see
I shouldn't
Daniel.
make fun of this poor guy,
I
but-
messed
know.
up.
Oh, we're just kidding though. Please still
Yeah.
subscribe.
Yeah. We need like a stricter process of getting the guests on because usually like with Chris, I think I watched a podcast a long time ago where it was like Nintendo Dads or something. Maybe
That's us,
might have been
Jesse. We're
them, or like
Nintendo dads.
yeah, but it was just like the podcast like Nintendo Guru or Nintendo Dad or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So I watched that podcast and I had came across some of the stuff that you've done from like articles and stuff that I've written about you, and then from that I think I'm like started following you on social media and subscribed to your YouTube and everything. But then it wasn't until like I don't know if it unfollowed me or what happened, but like I noticed that I was trying to think of guests to come on that had something to do with Nintendo, and I seen something that someone had retweeted from you, and I was like, oh, I remember she used to be on the podcast with the one guy, and it was really awesome. So we should get her on, but we need to do like more background checks to make sure that they actually.
You played some Zelda.
Yeah. No, there was some blah. I'm getting tongue tied. There was someone who commented on a video with one of my friends, Orion, who, yeah,
They were so mean to him.
He's a big
so
Zelda.
Nice,
yeah, he's a big Zelda fan, but he is the lead singer of a band called City of Ashes, and he's also an actor. One of the things that he acted in is he played Link in a fan-made movie or project. So I had him on because obviously he's such a big fan, but he'd also he came on to talk about the new album that his band was releasing and then his time and experience playing Link in the TV show, because I always thought it was odd that in one job he was the lead singer of a band, so like all he does, it's all about him and his vocals, but then the other project was just him being silent. So like I just thought it was a bit of irony there. But he came on and he was talking about like he hasn't had time to really play a lot of the newer Nintendo games because he was constantly on the road on tour for his band. So there's a lot of people that was commenting like, next time you get a guest, make sure that they're actually a Nintendo fan, or like, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. And it's like, no, he's very knowledgeable about Nintendo. He's played Ocarina of Time or like Wind Waker as much as anyone else. It's just like when it comes to the new stuff, like a lot of people, we don't really, just because we don't have time to play something doesn't mean we don't have the love for it. Like I'm sure you would love to like take a full weekend and just like run through all of Breath of the Wild, but like no one really has that free time in their schedule. So.
Well, you know what they're saying is like a lot of the 90s kids are like starting to become adults, and like, we had our fair share of our generation playing video games. Dare say that we kind of started it, but we have to get older and we have stuff to do, and life is hard, and
yeah.
And again, there's no expectations for you to become a gamer, like, just life.
All right. So,
what was the question again?
No, it was. I was just looking at it. Gibbs commented saying Alanuma equals emo, because he's the one that the first game he directed was Majora's Mask, so he's been in charge of all of the emo games.
He's the dungeon designer for Ocarina of Time, which means that he's personally responsible for Bottom of the Well.
Yeah.
AKA my child nightmares.
So yeah, the question was, what will happen in Zelda in the recent game? Like, what is to become the royal line? So he needs to, I think, have this structured a little bit better, but maybe he just typed it out and didn't
what does
think
it
about
take, right, to become part of the royal line?
Well,
I mean, the royal family is all descended from.
Yeah.
Well, in this, I think he
means
like
it's the same like soul, I guess. If that makes any sense.
With this, I think he means like what is to become the royal line is what he said. So maybe it's like where the royal family, like everyone's dead basically, except people in Kakariko and Gerudo. Yeah, so like the royal family, the only person left is Zelda, and then maybe Link and Zelda have a relationship. But then it's like they're the only royals.
Been through this so many times.
Yeah, so
they're
like
probably gonna get reincarnated. New storyline.
Yeah, I think. But for the royal line, in this interpretation of the question, I think Link obviously becomes the king of Hyrule, and then Zelda would become queen. So
Oh, so you ship it, boy?
I know. She
well,
Just
gonna
so
get
you
a
ship it?
baby.
well, the only other that was interested in Link is a dead fish. So
Yep. Okay,
Mifa
so
That's
Mifa's
too
not there
good.
anymore. But yeah,
That's
what was your interpretation of the question though? Because you thought it was something, you meant something different, Chris.
Yeah, I thought he was like talking about like the standards of what it takes to be part of the royal line. But you know what? Going back to like Mifa and Link, how cool though would it be if it was like a half human?
Like
how
half human,
weird
half
That
would
would
it
Sora.
be?
that'd be crazy. Well, that'd be
No,
crazy. And
thanks.
then like it would get like half elf. I don't know. Like it'd
There
be
was the
No.
no.
there is a, I'm going to spoil something for you, but there is a relationship, and it might be a side quest, but there is a relationship between Azora and a Hylian in Breath of the
Mm.
Wild.
That's true. Yes, they send each other like letters. You have to bring a letter to him
Yeah,
from her.
That's cute.
Yeah,
so
and it's
there is
yeah,
some
it's weird.
interspecies erotica going on in Breath of the Wild.
What's the latest Tarantino movie? Doesn't it involve like a fish and someone falls in love with it?
What? Oh
Right?
boy.
What
Okay,
is
but
it?
Zoras lay eggs, guys. The reproduction is totally different.
Who
Oh
knows?
no.
Yeah.
Oh
So
no.
I guess we'll have two more questions and then we'll be done. Maybe one more. So Joshua Bennett, you go ahead and take this question, Chris, since you're a special guest. Go ahead.
Okay. So,
Joshua Bennett.
Joshua,
Yeah, it's
he
highlighted
said,
blue.
I'm sick of remakes. SSHD is inevitable, which I don't mind because I love SS and it needs a remake, but then no more. I don't care if it's Unreal Engine or whatnot. I'd rather have more spin offs. At least it's something new.
Yeah. So how do you guys feel about this? Because I like to look at every home console Zelda game has in a way been remade or reimagined, except Zelda 2, because when they were first showing off Breath of the Wild, they said that it was heavily inspired by artwork from the original Zelda.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's the artwork looking at the Twin Peaks and everything. And then the Lionels from the first one are obviously in this one. So there's a lot of inspiration from it. So I would say like it was not necessarily a remake of the original Zelda, but like
It was
at least
inspired by
yeah,
it, at the very least.
inspired. So and then we have A Link to the Past, which was reimagined with A Link Between Worlds, which began as a remake but then changed into its own thing.
Mm-hmm.
We have Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, Wind Waker HD, Twilight Princess HD. The only one that hasn't been remade is Skyward Sword. So I think it sometime this year, maybe next year, we will get some word of it being remade.
I still think 2021, the 10-year anniversary of Skyward Sword.
Yeah, but that's so long to wait. That's like 3-4 more years. So personally, I'm a fan of remakes. If it allows me to play a game that I already love, but make it look even better. Because the problem is, like, if you compare like Ocarina of Time 3D, which was the remake of Ocarina of Time, it wasn't made by Nintendo. Like Grezzo, which was a separate company, was making it, so Nintendo was still able to work on Skyward Sword or whatever game they were working on at the time. So it wasn't taking any development time away from Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, well, we're going to give you this remake instead of this new game. I look at it as here's this remake plus this new game because it's a different team working on it. The only time that didn't really happen was with Wind Waker HD, which Nintendo did work on. But then they said because of their work on Wind Waker HD, they were able to understand how to develop games in HD more so than they would if they were just starting from nothing. So in a way, maybe that kind of helped even speed it along. But yeah, the question, like the remakes, are you guys in favor of it? Because this year,
Yeah.
it's the 20th anniversary of Ocarina of Time, but it's already had a 3D remake. But I'm still all in on an official HD remake. What's a better way to celebrate the 20th anniversary than to release an official HD remake? So I'm in favor of it. I do understand where he's coming from. I would still like spin-offs, like Hyrule Warriors is really fun. So whether it's a spin-off, a remake, or an original game, to me it is more Zelda. As long as it's not a cell phone game. Daniel is also in support. He says he doesn't want a cell phone Zelda game. So
I don't.
but what about you, Chris? Like, what are your thoughts on?
I'm totally down for it. Well, because like, think of it this way: it allows another generation, a younger generation, to play the games that we played when we were younger. And if you don't want the remakes, don't buy them.
Yeah.
So and again, it's like it allows like for people who've never played the game to enjoy it, the way that we did when we were younger. So that's why I think it's perfect.
Yeah.
I like the remakes. Keep them coming.
And you kind of answered this earlier with the spin-off, because he talked about spin-offs and remakes. But if you were to choose any Zelda game to be remade, which one would it be? Because if we ask the spin-off question, like the game is based off the side characters that we talked about earlier, we kind of listed what we would want as a spin-off. So as a spin-off, I assume you would want Impa, a game focused on Impa. So what would you want as, like what Zelda game would you want to see remade for the Switch?
To be honest, I would just like even just Twilight Princess just to be in 4K. I would really like to see a detailed like, oh no, he disappeared. I would like to see he disappeared.
Sorry,
I'm seeing in a dark corner already because the sun's like disappearing.
Your room was so bright
Oh
before.
yeah, Gibbs, one of the people in the chat, he mentioned that your lighting changed. So.
I know, yeah.
But it's fine. It's everyone can watch and see that like as it gets darker in your room, the podcast is coming to an end. So we only have one.
Happy in the background, but honestly, I would just like to see any of the games made in hyper realistic.
Yeah. Did you see the Zelda Wii U tech demo?
What's that?
The Zelda Wii U tech demo. Whenever they first showed off the Wii U.
Yeah, like a really hyper realistic, like see the sweat on their face, like if it was like Twilight Princess, see the wolf and all his fur and like I think that would be gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. Because my sister started playing Okami, like the remake HD, and she said it was amazing.
Yeah, like what I always wanted was if I could pick any art style for Zelda, I would want it to look like Final Fantasy. Like a mix of Final Fantasy 15 and the new Tomb Raider games, where Tomb Raider looks super realistic, and then the Final Fantasy 15 looks more like a realistic anime. So if they can make it look like even more realistic anime, I think that would be the perfect style for Zelda. So that's what I would go with. But what about you, Daniel? I know you've answered this before, but what game should be remade?
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, I'd like to dispel to kind of go along with what you were saying, like, just because we'll get a remake doesn't mean we won't get another Zelda game. Also, the spin-off thing, like, Nintendo, they're very protective of their IPs, so the fact that we've gotten any Zelda spin-offs is a miracle. Like, when Hyrule Warriors was announced, I was blown away. I was like, no way are they allowing this. Like, they're so protective of their properties, right? I would like more spin-offs too. I think that would be fun. But like again, I'm also like, hit me with the remakes. I love them. I'll get them. I've got them. I got them all basically. So I don't see why anyone would be opposed to them. Like you don't have to get it if you really don't want it. That's an option for you. If you're really like you don't need it or whatever. Like I already have this game. I don't need to buy it again. Then sure, don't buy it. But every time, like I used to have that same sort of mentality, but then I was at work at my old job a few years ago, and I had a coworker who she was born in '98, and so
the year Ocarina.
Yeah, exactly. right? So for me, like, I have childhood memories that took place that year, that include Zelda. And this person, she was a lot younger than me. Oh, she's gone now. She's gone into the shadows. Oh, okay, they're like
I'm back.
vanished into the shadows.
Yes, it's like, oh, she's
Okay.
gone. We can
Monster,
talk bad about her
monster
now.
took her. um,
I thought it'd be
but yeah,
sneaking, but
so this was kind of an eye-opening experience for me because then she's like telling me, "Oh, I have a 3DS. I was playing this Zelda game on it." She'd heard me talk about how much I love Zelda before, and she's like, "It's really good." And this was the first time she had played it, and I was like, "Oh, which game was it?" A Link Between Worlds, because I really liked that game. And she's like, "No, Ocarina of Time." And I was like, "This is the first time you were playing this," and I was like, why? Like when we were kids, well, thinking like that. And then I remembered, like,
But you
but
said this was a
she's younger
coworker?
than me. Yeah, yeah. So,
Is it the one
you
that
know,
was supposed to also be a guest on here?
no, 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 not the
Okay.
same person. But it was kind of eye-opening because, like, this person, she's almost an adult. She was in her late teens at the time. And she didn't have the same childhood I did. She didn't have an N64 growing up like I did because she was born that much later. So this is her chance to play this game. It's a new opportunity, bringing it to a new generation. So like sometimes companies remake games too soon, I think. But
Hmm.
like when Twilight Princess came out, I knew people who were like, this game is new still. Like, why are they remaking it? And I was like, guys, it came out 10 years ago.
Yeah, it came
They're
out
like,
on the 10th
what?
anniversary.
No way. And I'm like, yeah, 2006, guys. It came out 10 years ago. And people, like we forget how much time has gone by. Um, we sort of lose track of that. So yeah, I'm all for remakes if it can expand the audience and bring more people into this. When I was at Symphony of the Goddess, sitting behind me were these two little kids. They're probably like 10, and they were playing Zelda on their 3DSs together. And I was like, that's awesome. Like these kids they haven't played all the same games I have, but they're here at this symphony about to listen to some great Zelda music and have their minds blown and uh, just like I am, and they're coming into this, and it's awesome to see people like learn about it and get into this fan base, right? Even though some people are quite elitist. But yeah, I really like any remake is good by me. We don't maybe if it's one that was just out recently, we can wait a little bit before like Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD. I think we're too soon to do another remake of. Ocarina of Time is an old enough game that they could do it, even though the 3D version came out in
Yeah,
2011. Not
especially
everyone
if
had a
if
3D
they
version,
choose to
but
do another remake instead of just a
yeah,
port of the 3D version to the Switch. Like if they actually remade it to
yeah,
look somewhat like the fan projects, then I could see
yeah.
like
I
it
don't
being.
want it in Unreal Engine 4 because everyone and their dog ports things as a fan project to Unreal Engine 4, and I find, you know, no, we don't need that. I would, if I had to pick one Zelda game to have a cool remake of now, I'd love to see the original two,
Zelda 2.
Zelda 1 and 2.
Oh,
I'd
Zelda
love to
1
see
and 2.
those two remade. And especially if they have the art style of like Octopath Traveler. God, that would look great.
Have you seen Octopath Traveler, Chris? It's like isn't that the two like the weird 2.5D thing?
Yeah, yeah, it's like 2D HD and it's got like really good lighting. Just do a quick
oh,
Google search
Yeah.
right now. It's
Octopath.
just think of the first Zelda but with that sort of style.
All right.
Octopath
So
Traveler.
we
I've
have
answered
two
this question to death.
we have two questions left. We will hurry and get through these instead of
Yes.
discussing
Sorry,
them at
I've
length
been like
like the
on these
others.
lengthy seminars today.
No, it's
No,
fine.
it's okay.
I could do a
So
TED talk about video
You're
games.
just very passionate.
so
You're passionate.
this
That's what
th-
it's all about.
this will be a quick question. Charles is a weirdo from
Oh,
Discord asks,
at least he's
uh,
honest.
here's the first question. What's it feel like doing a podcast? So I thought this was an interesting non-Nintendo Zelda related question. So really quickly for everyone, starting with you, Daniel, what's it like for you to do a podcast or to be a guest on a podcast?
I've guested on a couple podcasts. I do this one every week. I love it. It's fun. We get to sit down. I sit down with my friend Jesse, and we just get to talk about video games and stuff we love. And it's just,
Yeah,
I don't always have that opportunity with people. I'm a banker as my day job, and before
Yeah.
that I worked in a coffee shop, and so
Someone
it's not
comes in
it's
and
not
tries to get a loan. You're like, hey, have you played the new Mario Odyssey?
yeah.
Like,
Your funds
um,
show that you can afford it.
exactly. Well, I don't handle
yeah,
loans, but
that's.
um,
I
but
just
yeah,
now got that joke.
yeah. Um, yeah, so I don't, get to talk about that like most of the time. And I come home and I talk my wife's ear off about Nintendo and video games, and she's very supportive. And I'm really surprised that she's as supportive as she is. If, someone was talking to me for that long all the time about things that weren't my interests, I don't know. So, that's awesome. But it's nice to be able to kind of sit down and share this with Jesse, and we I think become pretty good friends over it. So
Yeah. So,
yeah.
what about you, Chris? What's it like? All the different podcasts that you've been part of.
I love podcasts. I
Yeah.
love
How? Wait,
podcasts. If
first of all,
anyone's ever new to it,
how often do you guest on podcasts? Because I've only seen like maybe 2 or 3. You mentioned you were on the Nintendo video earlier, so like
I
with
I have no idea.
have you been on
I
that
actually
many?
have no idea how many, to be honest.
Ah,
Oh,
But
what
I
would you
so
say
I
are like
uh,
a couple of the most famous YouTube channels that you've been on a podcast for people that are watching that might want to check out things that you've also been on?
Nintendo Wire, they're
mhm.
amazing. I love them. They're really good. Um, I don't know. I've been on a lot. I love podcasts though. Just if anyone ever is gonna do it though, just make sure your time
Mhm.
zones are correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
That's like the
Although,
key. I always mess that up though. It's so funny because I've messed that up like several times in the past. I'm just like, when will I ever learn? But yeah, just make sure you're in the right time zone. And no, I love it. It's always like an honor to be invited on any podcast. I mean, for me, like having to give someone like the time of day, like time is the most precious thing, dare I say, in this world, you know?
mhm.
So to give it away to someone, I think it's really nice and I mean just being on here it's really refreshing and I love doing podcasts and talking about what I do or what I love or what I think and yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. I love it. It's really nice.
See, when I reached out to you, I didn't know whether or not you would say yes or no. Luckily, you were like very nice whenever you were replying. It's like, yeah, I'd love to, and yeah.
Yeah.
So like whenever I was reaching out, I was like, I know like from her YouTube channel, like it only has 25,000 subscribers, but like what if she looks at ours and we have 50,000 or I guess a little more than 50,000 now? She's like, I don't really have the time to do something like that, or like
Oh,
whatever the
never. I
reason may
love
be. Because
podcasts.
like you had the
These are
20,
amazing.
yeah, like you had the 25,000 subscribers. So in my head, I was like, what if she's like busy with her own YouTube channel? She doesn't have the time, or like, what if YouTube isn't even her priority and she's busy like making all of these different things, like the amiibo?
Mhm.
So I didn't really know. So I was surprised when like you almost immediately were like, yes, I would love to.
Oh, no,
So
thank you for reaching out. Like
yeah,
again, I mean, the fact that people want to hear what I say is crazy because I don't think I have much to say, to be honest.
yeah.
But I appreciate it, and it's
I've,
it's a lot of fun, and I get to meet a ton of people. I get to open my mind to other opinions, and it's fun, and I like it.
so
So
here's a question I'm at. If you had your own podcast, who are like 3 people that you would like to bring on as guests that you may have not had the chance to do anything with them yet? Like whether it's a YouTube
Reggie,
channel, Twitch, or Nintendo. Reggie.
Reggie from
Reggie seems
Nintendo.
fun. I would like to have
um,
a
Yes,
podcast at like
I'd love to have
not a
Reggie.
podcast like this, but like going out to just like a normal fancy ish restaurant, like
Mhm.
sitting like face to face with Reggie and then discussing everything over dinner. And so it's like a more relaxed environment instead of one person just in front of a webcam. Because then maybe where he's relaxed, he might let some information slip. Like,
Oh, you devious bastard.
yeah.
get
So,
him get him a little drink. Like, can you
who
want some wine?
who are 2 other people? Two other.
Um, ooh, let's see. I would like to get Boogie. Um, what is it, Boogie9288 from YouTube. He's like a really cool YouTuber that has helped me.
Yeah, he won the Game Awards
Yeah.
most trending gamer or whatever.
Oh,
It was like
good
the
for
year
him.
after, because I think Greg Miller, who we were talking about earlier, he won the first year they had it, and I think Boogie won the second.
Mm-hmm. He's amazing. He's a sweetheart, and he like is very inspirational too. So I like to talk to people about like who really do inspire others to chase after what they want. And again, like he has a huge following, but he still is able to help a lot of people who are upcoming. And for him to take the
Yeah.
time to do that is just like amazing.
He recently had the surgery too, because I don't
He did.
watch his YouTube channel, but I know of it, and there's a lot of people
Yeah.
talking about like he just had surgery and just like a bunch of stuff that he had going on. So he seems really cool from everything I've heard. I just haven't had the interest in like going and checking it out. There's already so many that I watch; it's hard to find
There's
more
so
time.
Many. There's so many.
So
What
So
else?
many.
What else? Well, just because it's Ryan Reynolds, so.
oh yeah, Ryan Reynolds
Because it was like, can I get a sample of
in
what
the
Pikachu's
Deadpool
gonna sound like?
outfit.
Just
He's
a
from my
small
hometown.
sample.
Did you know that?
What's that?
Is he?
He's from my hometown. He's from Vancouver.
No way.
Yeah, you can tell he's got that Vancouver accent when he talks.
That's awesome.
He
See, I
does.
love Canada, by the way. I love Canada.
Because we gave the world Ryan Reynolds. We
You
also
did.
gave you
You gave a lot.
Michael
You
J.
gave a lot.
Fox,
Justin
William
Bieber, though, I don't
Shatner.
know him. You
No,
can take it back. But
Do not speak of it.
You said that you love Canada. We actually had one video where our friend Holly, who was on not the last episode, but the one before that, Holly Wolf, she's from Canada, and she was watching, and she tweeted something, and she was freaking out, and was like, "No way! I didn't know Daniel was from Canada." And then like I think someone else that was from Canada was like,
That was Andy from Zelda Informer. He's one
Yeah.
of the main editors there. And he's from Calgary.
He's awesome.
Yeah, we had our little pride moment.
yeah. So like it was just a bunch of people that watched the YouTube channel. We're all just like, pride for Canada.
Yeah.
How do you say your what's it called? Because it's not president, but Thoreau.
Prime Minister.
Yes, Prime Minister.
It's the same as
He
England.
is
You know, they
so
have a
good
Prime
looking.
Minister. Trudeau, yeah. Oh, Justin Trudeau. He's a Frenchie though. He's
Oh no.
So
Just
what?
is, like, enough
No.
comments.
I was just thinking like to go along with the podcast thing.
Mhm.
Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? I may even like cut this section out since it's again more about you and put it with like the interview earlier. I think it might make more sense. So like yeah, why haven't you started your own podcast? You have your own YouTube channel, your own following.
I do.
So like you enjoy
I don't
going on
know.
podcasts.
I do.
Is
I
it
do like
intimidating? Like
Not
the
at
thought
all.
of starting up your own?
The start of starting one is
Oh.
definitely intimidating. But for me, like I'd rather stick to something that I truly love, and that's making art and teaching how to make things and be really crafty and creative. So that's why I have YouTube mostly, is to make like DIYs and how to make custom amiibos. And I'm probably gonna do more in like nerdy crafts and stuff like that. So I love teaching. I love art. I'm gonna stick to what I really, really like, which is that. But I love podcasts too. I like joining podcasts. Starting them, I don't know what I would talk about, but
It's a lot more work. Like, it's a lot of work starting it. Keeping it going is not as much work. But like getting that start going, we were spending, I don't even know how long we spent planning it before we launched into it.
Yeah.
Jesse. Like,
And then there
it
was
was
the
a
thing
long time
where
like, deciding on the format and how,
yeah,
the
so
name.
there was we originally planned to have each of the segments have its own name, so it's not like, oh, now we're moving to the news or now we're moving to the mailbag. We were going to have each segment its own name. There's a funny thing where I used to be actually at the time I actually worked for Zelda Dungeon, but they had their own YouTube video series where they had their own mailbag. They called it the Curiosity Shop from Majora's Mask. So it was a clever name, but it stopped. And the guy Axel had like moved on to do other stuff outside of YouTube, and he wasn't writing for Zelda Dungeon anymore. And nobody really had that type of Zelda mailbag where they were on camera answering questions sent in from people specifically about Zelda. So whenever we started ours, I was like, we should do like our curiosity shop. But then like 10 or 12 episodes of the podcast in, Axel came back to Zelda Dungeon after like a 4-year hiatus and was like, "Hey, now I'm doing the curiosity shop again." So like we actually had him on the last podcast so he could explain like where he was, like why he was gone from the internet, because even his Twitter was inactive for like 4 years. So he was explaining his absence and everything, and it was just like small hiccups like that that I didn't really think about at first, where it's like, well, this is kind of dead now, and it's been dead for 4 years. It probably isn't coming back. From what I had talked to Mossis, the owner of Zelda Dungeon, who also recently bought Zelda Informer, he was fine with it. Like, he even came on the podcast while we had the Zelda mailbag or the curiosity shop. So, like, he wasn't like against it or anything. But then it was just like he was starting up his zone, or he was starting it back again. So it left us in a spot like, okay, well, what do we call our segment? So we left it up to all of the fans watching to come up with their own creative name, and then we just choose whatever the best one is going to be. But anyways, got off topic. Sorry. Just like
No,
there's
it's
a
okay.
lot of things that you don't really think about, like when it comes to making a podcast, like simple situations like a name issue. But the our final question, if you still
we
have
were
the
gonna. My first suggestion for the. Oh, sorry.
oh no,
Sorry.
finish what you were saying.
I was tangenting again. I was gonna say, I'm so sorry. I know you want to move on. I was gonna say the first like suggestion when we were talking about names. So I was like, well, why don't we could just go simple, go Game Over Podcast because you Game Over Jesse.
Oh yeah.
And then I googled Game Over Podcast to see, and there was like 4 other podcasts called Game Over Podcast. I was like, well, that one's out. So,
Got that idea.
oh well. Yeah.
So
Oh well.
Chris, our final question from the champion of Morrowind. Do you want to read it?
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Would you play an RTS Zelda game, and which do you prefer? Minish Cap, Link's Awakening, The Oracles of Ages, or Seasons? Mm. Well, I like Minish Cap.
All right. I would say I like this might not be a real answer, but I like the art style of Minish Cap more. I like the story of Link's Awakening more, but I think the gameplay from the Oracle games are better. So, but if I had to pick, I would say Oracle of Ages is the one that I would choose out of all of those as my personal favorite, Oracle of Ages. So.
What about an RTS Zelda game?
Oh yeah, that like a real-time strategy Zelda game. Would it be similar to like Mario and
No, Mario
plus
Rabbids
Rabbids?
is turn-based though. It's not real time.
Oh,
More like Warcraft.
okay. Like a, I don't. I guess it could be interesting.
It could be. I don't think it could follow Link.
It would have to be like based off like the different armies.
Yeah, so you could have your races. You could have your Gorons, Soras, Rito, Gerudo armies, and your Hylian armies.
If it was something that like a separate developer was making, kind of like how they made Hyrule Warriors, I would think that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But if it was Nintendo saying, "Hey, this is going to be our next Zelda game," I would be like, "No, just make another one like the others." So that's how I feel about it. Like if it came out on its own and it didn't delay any other Zelda games, I would be happy. Like I would give it a chance. But if it's like instead of Breath of the Wild 2 or whatever it's going to be, here's a strategy Zelda game, I'd be like, but I don't.
About breaking conventions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be excited for it, but I would be interested. And then I would have to go with Oracles of Ages. So what about you, Daniel?
Let's see. So I have never, and I've mentioned it before on the podcast. I shamefully have never played the Oracle games, so
Oh, you're not a real
I
Zelda
can't.
fan.
I'm not a hashtag real Zelda fan.
That's what all the comments are gonna be saying.
Shame on you.
Okay, so I never had like my first handheld console. I had all the home consoles growing up. My first handheld console wasn't until I was like into my late teens, and I got a DS. And then I bought a 3DS, and then I went back and got other games later that I'd missed out on in my childhood. I never had a Game Boy, so my wife had a Game Boy, so I bought Link's Awakening for the Game Boy a couple years ago. So that was the first time I had played that game.
But you played it on the original hardware.
On the Game Boy, yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, so I thought it would be cool. I actually never finished it because some other bigger games were coming out and I got sidetracked, and so I can't really answer which one's my favorite. I guess I have to say Minish Cap by default because I've finished Minish Cap. But I didn't have a Game Boy Advance. I bought that like 2-3 years ago on the Wii U Virtual Console. So I guess I should get the Oracle games because I have a 3DS with eShop, but they are on the eShop. But yeah, as for an RTS Zelda, it could be fun. Again, I don't think it could be Link. I don't think Link could be in it. What you could have it is about the Hyrulean Civil War that happened before Ocarina of Time.
Yeah,
that's hinted at that there was a civil war.
That's getting into the deep Zelda.
Yeah, but they would have to do something with that, I think. But I don't know how it would work because you could have like the different races as your different factions, but you could also say that they're allied, and I just don't know how well it works in the Zelda setting. I don't know. I just have a really hard time picturing it. Yeah. And usually that's not an issue for me because like I'm throwing out like, here, let's have a Champions RPG, let's have a Sheik stealth game. Like I'm all.
I think it would just be like an odd mixture.
It would just feel like Warcraft with Zelda skin almost,
Yeah.
So I don't know, but like if they made it and it was really good, like I would probably get it, as long as it was a spin-off and it was made by a third party.
It wasn't like the main title.
Yeah, and it wasn't the next big Zelda game. Yeah, because then, like the whole point of Zelda is that you play as Link and you go on an adventure, not battle it out in an epic war. So
yeah,
I won't be deploying the troops in Zelda anytime soon. I don't think, but unless that's their next mobile Zelda game that they're gonna.
All right, so
who knows?
With that being our last question, the first thing I have to do is apologize because we went on for like 3 hours.
Oh,
it's like twice as long as yeah. So
no worries.
I didn't know if because like someone came into your room a couple of times. I didn't know if you had other plans keeping you from it. So I was starting to feel bad, especially after looking at how long.
First one was my mom, then sister, and then that's it. So they like to bother me. So I'm just kidding.
All right. So thank you, Chris, for coming on the podcast, being a part of the interview, all of the news stories, and answering the questions with us from all of the fans at the very end. Hopefully, some of the people watching this will go over and check out some of your stuff. So, for those who may just be watching this mailbag and didn't tune in to the news stories or any of the previous videos, who are you? And what are you doing here?
Just a girl. Well, I customize amiibos, and I can do like characters and stuff like that. I have tutorials on my YouTube, Nintendo brand ambassador, all that stuff. So if they want to check out my artsy corner of the world, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
And what would they type in to find your Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook?
YouTube is GandaKris, so GandaKris. Instagram and Twitter is a little bit different. It's Miss GandaKris. So yes.
Was GandaKris already taken, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Yes, someone beat me to it. I know.
Oh wow. What does Ganda mean? Does that come from something else?
It does. It does. It's kind of a little bit of a long story-ish, but basically, I'm half Filipino, half Spanish. So, in Tagalog, which is the Filipino language, maganda is beautiful. So, not to be conceited or anything, but when I was really quiet back in high school, I realized that it's like really important to call yourself and know that you're beautiful inside, regardless of what you look like or who you are or whatever. So I wanted to call myself GandaKris. So just to say that I'm beautiful. Yeah,
Oh.
and in any other way.
That's actually
That's a
really
heartwarming story.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a really nice story. So Daniel, who are you, and why should we care about
I
you?
don't know, man. Well, I'm Daniel. You can find me on this very podcast every week, except for 2 other weeks in the past, apparently. And you can follow me on Twitter at CaptBurgerson, where I don't have as nice a story about where Burgerson came from. And I have my own YouTube channel called NSHG Films. You can also follow me on Instagram, which is the same as my Twitter, CaptBurgerson. And yeah, there's me. And also I work on some other channels as an editor, where I do video editing for channels such as Game Over Jesse's channel, this one, Chamber of Sages, and McIntyre. So yeah. Or
And
I guess
Nintendo
McIntyre
Prime.
Rise now. Oh, and Nintendo Prime. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
You
Nathaniel's
do so
gonna hate me. He
much.
listens to this podcast. I don't do editing for Nintendo Prime, but I do sometimes produce original content. So like the videos of mine that go on there are like fully written, directed, produced, edited, voiced by me. So yeah, some of my OG stuff goes on there.
Alright.
Oh, and I have a website. I'm everywhere. Called burgersonmedia.com. It's still under works because the person I'm not very good with web design or anything, so the person helping me with that he's a busy guy, so it's still under construction, but you can go check out what's fully functional on that website so far if you want. Yeah, and that's
Alright.
me.
And do
Jesse,
you?
who are you?
I am not that important, but Chris, do you have a Discord or anything else that you would like to mention for fans, or no?
Just
Nope.
YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook.
Just YouTube. Okay.
And YouTube,
So
Twitter, Instagram.
Mine's too long-winded. Chris's is better.
yeah. All right. So everyone, I'm sure you are already aware that this YouTube channel is where you can find me. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, probably other stuff that I forgot. Everything is /GameOverJesse, so very simple. Yeah, Facebook, Twitter, everything.com/GameOverJesse. Very simple, very easy to find. And thank you all. Thank you, Chris, for joining on the podcast. Thank you, Daniel, for hosting with
Jesse.
me. And thank you, everyone. There's a bunch of names here, like RPG and some of the other people that I remember seeing when we first started the podcast. So thank you all for staying this entire 3 hours. That's 30 minutes longer than a Harry Potter movie. So thank you.
There we go.
All right.
But almost as long as the Lord of the Rings movie.
Yeah. All right. Say bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Bye. Bye.